being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet whom millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
What's up, everybody? On a Tuesday edition without a press conference. Caroline Leavitt does not have one scheduled today as of 1 o'clock, so we'll see what happens. But there's a whole lot of other news to go through. And I'm going to go through some things chronologically here at the start because it's very important to see where we were last night to where we are right now. Because a whole lot of stuff is happening, and I'm going to go through that to you. I just also want to let you know I've got Kelly Loeffler here with an interview. She's been all over the news today, and she decided she wanted to do an interview with me as well. So we do have her interview coming up as well. But before we go there, in order to set the table, and so you guys know what exactly at this point is going on, so you don't have to wonder. You don't have to think about, hey, somebody said this or somebody said that or Tucker saying this or Mark Levin saying that. I don't care. I voted for Donald Trump, not Tucker, not Mark Levin. I happen to like both of them. I wish they get their acts together. But President Trump isn't sending smoke signals anymore. He's not sending out comms. He's actually making very declarative statements. But let's go back until, I don't know, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning as he was flying back from Canada, heading back into D.C. It's very important to hear what was said, then I'm going to show you what he posted. So without further ado, let's jump right into this because there's a whole lot for you to uncompact here as to get to where we are right now at 1:05 p.m. All right, so let's listen to what he said late last night.
How's it going? It's going well. Did everybody have a good time? How about you? I did. I always have a good time. Hello. Hi, Jennifer.
You just posted right before we took off that you're not leaving because of a ceasefire. Why are you?
We're looking at better than ceasefire. We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel. Nice guy. But he doesn't get it right too often. But
all right, so let's stop right there. Everybody assumed that the reason why he was hightailing it back to Washington was because there was some sort of ceasefire he was going to be working on. And he's like, nah, that ain't it. It's bigger. And I'm thinking, what could be bigger than a ceasefire? I mean, isn't that what you would want? And he's referring to this post right here. This post was actually, he put this up at 1:15 in the morning. So the boss was working. He was not sleeping on the plane. He was working. And he posted this. Publicity-seeking President Emmanuel Macron of France mistakenly said that I left the G7 summit in Canada to go back to D.C. to work on, quote, a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Notice he put ceasefire in quotations. Wrong. Wrong. He has no idea why I'm now on my way to Washington, but it certainly has nothing to do with a ceasefire. It's much bigger than that. Whether purposely or not, Emmanuel always gets it wrong. Stay tuned. All right, so what possibly could be bigger than a ceasefire between these two countries? Between Israel and Iran? What could be bigger? At that time, at 1:15 in the morning, people were talking about it. What the hell's going on? Why are you coming back then? What exactly, was it security reasons? It was much bigger than a ceasefire. What in the hell was he talking about? I don't know. Let's see.
You're looking for better than a ceasefire.
You're not going to have this conflict at this stage. You're going to do anything more for Israel right now?
We're doing pretty well. Right now, we're doing pretty well. Remember, Iran cannot have any nuclear weapons. Very simple. Not to go too deep into it. They just can't have a nuclear weapon.
Now, it sounds kind of funny because I had to, basically, it's on the airplane, and you know how an airplane, so I had to try and enhance it, and so some of it got garbled, but you can hear him pretty clear. And what he said there again, which he has reiterated a number of times, over and over, I don't care what you think, Iran is not getting a nuclear weapon, period. Now, you yourself could go on X, and you could go look on True Social, and you can confirm, without anybody else's input, President Trump has not wavered whatsoever with that statement. They will never have a nuclear weapon. Now I'm going to ask you to pull back, because people are like, I didn't vote for war. Go back and look at some of the campaign speeches. I covered every single campaign speech. And very often, he would say, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. See, I think when people get into the whole fuss and screaming about, I didn't vote for war and everything, they don't remember. Those of you who've been with me for some time, we watched every single campaign speech. And he didn't mention it every single time, but when he did, he kept saying, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It is non-starter. There's nothing to discuss, period. I don't care if all your fifis get hurt and you don't want to see American soldiers. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. What did you, maybe not you, but what did people think when he's been saying that for years? It can't happen. It cannot happen. Did you think Iran would just go, yeah, Dano don't want to have weapon, we stop? Hell no. It was always there. It never went away. It was said during the campaign, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Maybe you missed it. Maybe some of you missed it. But he was very specific, and he always hit that with a punctuation mark. He left nothing to chance. He left nothing to wonder. Is he thinking someone else could do it? Is they going to have, some kind of talk? I'm open to negotiation, but you can't have it. Period. There is nothing I can negotiate with you that involves you having a nuclear weapon. Period. A couple? None. You will never have one. So if there was any inequity, if anybody over the last year didn't realize that was one of the most declarative statements you've ever heard, maybe you forgot. Maybe you sat back and rested. Maybe you thought to yourself, okay, he's in there now and they can negotiate. Well, anytime you do a negotiation, there is something in that negotiation you will refuse to give up. I'll give you the pink thing. I'll give you the blue thing. Oh, I'll even give you the yellow thing. Nah, you can't have this green thing. I don't care what you're going to do. That green thing that President Trump said was never going to be part of any negotiation was a nuclear weapon. Let's continue.
To run, to evacuate. Is there a threat or is there incoming? What was the thinking on the position?
I want people to be safe. That's always possible. Things like that could happen. I just want people to be safe.
Is there any concern about U.S. troops or assets in the region?
Today, great people that know how to protect themselves.
Better. What specifically do you
so hard they do anything to our people. Look down so hard, and the gloves are off so beautifully. Now,
Okay, stop there. You guys have followed this man for quite some time. You think he's bluffing? I dare you, do not touch a hair on an American head. Ain't gonna happen. If that happens, pray to Allah. Because that's probably the only place, only safety you're gonna get, and it's after you get to the 40 virgins. It's done. Don't hurt an American, not one. Again, so he's given very, very definitive lines that people cannot cross. Now, the other thing I want people to understand, in the peanut gallery all around X, do these people on this plane and do these people on X really expect the President of the United States to tell them what his plans are with this Israel-Iran thing? I mean, so what do you think? I think that you're an idiot for asking me. You'll have to see what happens. Nobody knows except a very select few people. Nobody. Not CNN, not MSNBC, not Fox, and definitely nobody on X. That man and a very select few know exactly what's going to happen. You have to remember that.
I think they know not to touch our troops.
Are you sending the vice?
Our troops are red.
Send the vice president and Steve Witkoff. There's reports that you want to send the vice president and Steve Witkoff to meet with the Iranians and have discussions. Is that something you're considering?
I treat it. I may. Depends on what happens when I get back.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
A real end, not a ceasefire. And then something else.
Yeah, people miss that. See, if you're used to negotiating with people and you're used to talking to people, especially somebody like him, did you notice what he did? It was very subtle. The man asked him, what's better than a ceasefire? And this guy, who's the President of the United States, who's very direct, what did he do? He quickly looked away. That put chills up my spine. He already has something he's doing. He had to make sure he didn't let it out. Hey, so what's better than a ceasefire? The end. Did you see that? It wasn't like, hey, yeah, the end. He knows what's coming. And I didn't hear anyone on the news talk about it because the end doesn't have anything beyond it other than a period. End. E-N-D. Look it up in a dictionary. It means over. Nothing else. Leave the theater. It's over. This is the end. And more people starting all talking on X and doing podcasts and saying, oh, well, maybe that. No. He's looking at the end. What does the end mean? That's a conversation you can have with people. What exactly does end mean? Is there a double feature? Is another movie going to come on? This was just the first one? What does end mean? Well, to me, I could tell you, but I want you to figure out what end means to you. Does it mean he's going to have, the Ayatollah and Netanyahu shake hands and then keep fighting for however long? Or does it mean he's going to tell them both, if one of them's still alive, that's it. We're done. The end. You can define that.
Or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Are you possible? Is that possible in the next 24, 48 hours?
Certainly possible.
I'm sorry for cutting it because he keeps throwing these breadcrumbs out there. He just told them, wave the white flag. Wave the white flag, which is going to become more important after I show you the other stuff he posted. Some of you guys, spoiler alert, may have already seen it. So 1:15 in the morning, President Trump's like, wave the white flag. Reporters right over their heads. Didn't even catch it.
Complete give up. That's possible, yeah.
One of the Joint Chiefs of the Secretary of Defense drawn up plans for you if Iran were to attack U.S. bases or do any damage to U.S. bases?
I just can't do
Because there's been some skepticism, but is there any guarantee that if the U.S. did get involved militarily, that a U.S. bomb could destroy Iran's nuclear program and facilities?
everything or anything or like, you know that. Look at you, right? No guarantee.
Oh my God, he's talking to Caitlin Collins, and she's like, is there a guarantee? Like, I can't guarantee you anything, honey. Look at you. I don't even know what he meant by that, but no, there's no guarantees here. There's no $200 thing and you get out of jail free. There's no guarantees. Yes, I may hit the button. This man is just out there telling people stuff and they don't want to hear it. It amazes me.
Take guarantee on what?
Do you think if the U.S. got involved militarily, it would actually wipe out Iran's nuclear program, or where's your assessment of that?
I hope their program is going to be wiped out long before that. But they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
I'm 2.5 minutes in. I've heard him say that 3 times now, and the media doesn't seem to understand it. I hope they're wiped out before then. All of them should have got... What do you mean, sir? Who's going to wipe them out before then? Right over their heads.
Is there any reason to believe the Israelis are going to slow down, or are they going to hit the accelerator right now because they've got priority?
Over the next 2 days, you're going to find out. Nobody's loaded up so far.
Has the gang been notified about what's coming in the next couple of days?
We talk to you. It's not necessary.
What you do in Washington that you couldn't in Canada?
Just be a little bit, I think, more well-versed. Not having to use telephones so much because I don't believe in telephones. Because people like you listen to them, you know. So, and being on the scene is much better. And we did everything I had to do on the G7. We had a good G7. We signed the deal with the European Union, phase 1 of the deal. But we signed the deal with the UK. And the UK is really great. We went very far down the line with a lot of deals. I mean, look, we're actually finished with every deal if you really think about it, because all I have to do is say this is what you're going to pay. But it's nice to be nice.
Secretary Dept to stay behind as your representative? Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, a couple of people. Yeah, we go. Who else has a question? How do I sit and thank the President, you talked to the European Union. Can you tell us what the status is on talks on those sides with the UK today? I don't feel that they're offering a fair deal yet. They've been very tough over the years. You look at the European Union, they formed in order to hurt the United States on trade. And we're either going to make a good deal that just pay whatever we say after that. What about the Japanese? You met briefly with Prime Minister conversation. I thought it was terrific, actually. You know, I was very friendly with Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister. He was a great man. But I think he's going to do a very good job. You think there's a chance of a deal there? No chance. They're tough. The Japanese is tough. But ultimately, you have to understand, we're just going to send a letter and say, this is what you're going to do.
Now, Ashley has told me, stop addressing the trolls. But this dude who trolled right now is perfect. Is a perfect example of what's happening. So I'm going to address it and pause for a second. Vincent Clark, I don't know, I've never met this guy before, I don't know if he's a regular, but his support is going to tank and the economy is going to sink. His legacy is done if he attacks Iran. Vincent, I don't know you, but what I do know, there are a lot of people like you on X trying to divide the MAGA coalition by saying, excuse my language, shit like that. Because that is truly shit like that. You see, if people are truly MAGA, maybe I will save it, but I'm going to talk more about this in a second. If people are truly MAGA, going to do something in some conflict with Iran is not going to cause, as you say, support is going to tank. We support President Trump. Period. That's it. There's nothing else that people who truly support President Trump would ever say that. It's not going to tank. We still support him. Just like I still love my wife, like I love my daughter. Do we have problems and we argue and complain at each other? Yeah. I may not like this or that she does. Do I not support her anymore? That's a joke. The people who would leave their support aren't in it. They're not in it to win it. They're here because it's a cool thing to do, but I'm going to continue with that, but I don't know if you'll be around much longer here.
And when you're not to do business, but there's a chance of it.
I mean, what uses the auto there as well? Is that on the table?
Anything else?
Attack at Kyiv. What's your response to that? It looks like 14 or so, a drone attack, Russian drone attack at Kyiv. Very recently. It seems like 14 civilians at the park.
That's not want to be back to seeing that's where there was. It sounds like it. I'll have to look at the
Joint statement on the Middle East. What changed about that convinced you to sign on to it?
The G7 statement. Well, I haven't seen the statement yet. When I authorized them to say certain things, I don't know whether or not they said it correctly, but I think they probably did. We had a good meeting. I think that Canadian representative was very good. He did a very good job.
How was your meeting with the American trade talks with Canadians?
I think we had a lot of good talk with a lot of people.
This is more complex. Can you tell me what you mean by that?
Complex with the deals that they never get done. And we need speed. You know, we're dealing with really, if you think about it, probably 175 countries. And most of them could just be sent a letter saying, it'll be an honor to trade with you, and here's what you're going to have to pay to do it. We're making a lot of money, you know, we took in $88 billion in tariffs, and I was called by Congress about 2 nights ago saying, we don't understand the numbers are so far off. And I said, is that good or bad? He said, well, we're taking in so much more income than we thought. We've never seen anything like this. What is it? I said, check the tariff column. And it's about $88 billion that they've never seen before. And that's nothing compared to what it's going to do.
You've got other tariffs coming down the pipe here. What's the timing on those? Things like copper, pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, we're going to be doing pharmaceuticals very soon. That's going to bring all the companies back into America.
All of them, or focusing on sunshine?
Back in, at least partially back in. You know, they left us because we had presidents that didn't know what the hell we're doing. We should have never lost our car business. We lost 52% of our car business over the years. We should have never lost it. All they had to do was say, if you make a car, you're going to leave us, you're going to make a car, you're going to pay a 25-30% tariff, and they would have never left. Nobody said that to anybody until I came along.
Security is saying that ICE is going to start enforcing in hotels and bars. So yeah, is that a change of course from last week?
We're going to look everywhere, but I think the biggest problem is the inner cities. We're looking everywhere. What they let into this country, what Biden let in or allowed, I don't think he knew what the hell he was doing, frankly. But whoever worked for him.
I've seen some of your comments. I apologize. This is on Air Force One, and for some reason they have not invented a microphone that, you know, blocks out airplane sound yet. So it's, yes, it does sound a little bit muffled, but this, after all the tweaks and everything, it's the best I could do.
But they let into this country, we're never going to forget it. They let prisoners in, they let gang members in, drug dealers in, the mentally insane into our country. No, we're going to get them out. There are far more in the inner cities Democrat-run cities, sadly, and I'm just giving you, there's far more in there than you have one farm someplace.
No one's getting exemptions anymore. Every blood is
Look at, but the bigger problem is the cities right now. That's where, and that tends to be where the really bad ones are. The murderers, you know, they've let in 11,888 murderers. People that kill people. Biden allowed that to happen. So the Democrats allowed it to happen. Biden didn't know he was even around.
Let's on your Senate confirmation with all the military actions. There are only 3 of your 6 sub-cabinet members of the Defense Department undersecretary.
Go faster. The Democrats hold up our nominations.
Talk to Senator Good about that.
John's doing a very good job. You know, I've got a lot of people, but he's doing a very good job. The Democrats, if we had George Washington up for approval, the Democrats would take maximum time, every hour, every minute, to delay him as long as possible. If we had a combination of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, they would go max. It's called max time.
You said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
What she said, I think they were.
Oh, he just cut Tulsi Gabbard off at the knees. Caitlin Collins comes in and says, hey, Tulsi testified X, Y, and Z. The boss said, I don't care what she said. How do you respond to that if you're Caitlin Collins? He just said, I don't care what she said. I know what I know. Okay.
You were in this beautiful scene for the meeting, and you said a lot about acquiring Canada as a state. Did anybody talk to you about that, and where are you now?
From Canada, but you know, it's up to them. They're going to have to pay a lot of tariffs and things. They're going to have to pay a lot of money for the Dome, for the Iron Dome. They want to be a part of it. We may make a separate deal on that, by the way. We discussed it, yeah, with the Dome. That may be a separate. They want to be in 71 billion. They're going to pay.
Separate from there.
In the Dome, yeah, they'll be under the Dome.
Are you open to negotiating with the Iranians right now, or do you want to wait until?
I've been negotiating. I told them to do the deal. They should have done the deal. The cities have been blown to pieces. We've lost a lot of people. They should have done the deal. I told them to do the deal. So I'm not too much in the mood to negotiate.
Do you think you'll leave the situation tomorrow at any point?
Did you hear what he just said there? Did you hear what the President of the United States just said there? I'm not in much of a mood to negotiate right now. Now, is that a smokescreen? Is he being serious? But in any event, he just said, and again, they didn't pick up on it. I'm not in any mood to negotiate right now. If I was sitting on that plane like, whoa. Earlier you said the end. Now you're saying you don't want to negotiate. It sounds to me like you've pretty much had it with Iran and you're heading back to Washington to take care of some business. Is that true? And let him talk, but they completely ignored it.
I'll leave tomorrow morning, girl, while you're sleeping. Goodbye.
Evacuate Tehran. You know, you posted evacuate.
I think it's safe. It's happening. I think it's safe for them to evacuate.
Minnesota, there are a lot of horrific details that came out today about the suspect who's been charged there. Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. He appointed this guy to position him. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling him. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, hi, how you doing? The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, you know, I could be nice to call him, but why waste time?
Are you getting a bill, sir? Or do you talk about what was said?
Well, the big
Close to change.
beautiful bill, right?
You go give it the change.
I hear so far it's going well. My goodness, and argument doesn't get approved. 68% tax increase, and I think the Democrats would have to, you know, they'd be, because we won't get Democrats to think of it. We're giving the biggest tax cut in history. Instead, you have the biggest tax increase in history. 68%.
Are you going to extend the TikTok deadline again? That's coming up.
It's
probably have to get China approval. I think we'll get it.
Legal basis.
I think the best thing to involved in
The legal basis to do that.
we do.
More on Iran. Is there any sign that North Korea is getting more involved in helping Iran, or is Russia getting more involved in
I haven't
military?
seen it. No. I don't think anybody wants to get involved in this.
What about American citizens?
Well, wait, I don't think anybody wants to get involved except us. These people must be zombies on this plane. These people must completely have no idea what to say unless it's told to them over the phone or if they get a text. How the hell could you let that big matzo ball just get out there? I don't think anybody wants to get involved but us. Huh? And that, no question, nothing.
We're trying to leave the area with the airport shut down, the area shut
We're
down.
doing the best we can with it. We're working on that. We're doing the best we can.
Thank you, everybody, very much. All right, so that was the gaggle on the plane, and I really wanted to do this in a chronological time frame so you could see what happens. You just, hopefully, without the muffling and everything, you heard what he said. It's an end. I'm not negotiating, and no one's getting involved except us. Amongst a couple times, he was saying, basically, hey, you people in Iran, bend over, kiss it. All right, so that was at like 1 o'clock in the morning, right after he railed on Macron, right? So I showed you this earlier. This was the post that he put up in regards to Macron saying President Trump is leaving and going home because there's something important like a ceasefire. And he's like, nope, much bigger than a ceasefire. Okay. This next post that I want you to see in this sequence. This one went up at 5:20 this morning. 5:20. So the man got no sleep. I have not reached out to Iran for peace talks. And he puts it in quotation marks, in any way, shape, or form. This is just more big letters, capitalized, highly fabricated fake news. If they want to talk, they know how to reach me. They should have taken the deal when that was on the table. It would have saved a lot of lives. That was at 5:20 in the morning. That's important because he's like, they know how to reach me. Right? Got that? 5:20 in the morning. If you want to talk, let me know. Then at, what time is this? 11:55, 6 hours later. You know, you got the time to call. I guess nobody called. I guess because he posted this at 11:55. We now have we. Of course, the people in the media aren't asking, who's we? We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived, and manufactured stuff. Interesting word. Nobody does it better than the good old USA. So, in that 6-hour period from 5 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock, I guess the calls didn't get made, and whatever happened in that 6-hour period, we took over the skies. We now control the airspace over Iran, whoever we is. Is it us and Israel? Is it us? I don't know. At that point, we don't really know who we is. But he wasn't done. That was 11:55. Now, sequentially, this gets posted at 12:19, about a half hour later. We, again, not knowing who we is, and I'm not even going to try to imagine who we is, we know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out. Kill, at least for now. Okay, hold on a second. So understand this communication is being seen worldwide, and the Ayatollah Asahol at this point is looking at this and going, it's too late. There's no place for you to go. Obviously, if he's telling the truth and not bluffing, you can't leave. You understand it right now. if what President Trump just said is true and not a smokescreen, he can't leave. It means they're looking at him. You know why? Because we control the skies. We probably have drones flying over unimpeded. We control the skies. Where is he? Okay, yeah, he's still sitting there. Yeah, he's pacing through the house right now because he's freaking out because he's about to go meet 40 virgins, and he just found out that those 40 virgins are guys. He's freaking out like a caged animal at this point. Why is he freaking out? Because we know where you are, and we're not going to kill you for now. I love how he put that. For now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That wasn't meant to you. It wasn't meant to me. He was saying that to the Ayatollah. Yeah, you're okay for now, but tickety tock. Hey, guess what? Guess what's gonna happen? And then he posted this. So that was 12:19, right? 12:19. Now this one, 3 minutes later. three minutes later at 12:22, unconditional surrender. That's it. There are no more negotiations. I've given you enough time. I flew back from Canada. I told you, make the call. You didn't call me in the last 6 or 7 hours. I told you, we got you under surveillance. We know exactly where the rat hole is. We know everything you're doing. We've got eyes on you. And now at 12:22, a little over an hour ago, surrender. Which is the exact word he used on the plane. See, that's how this all ties in. You have to listen, and then you watch, and then you read, and then you remember. And what he said on the plane was, to the idiots in the media, none of them understood, he goes, I'd take a surrender. And now he's calling for a surrender. When do you call for surrender? Well, you usually call for surrender after you've won. You have no more moves on the board. You want to call it? Seriously. You're playing poker, like you just want to split the pot and try to take it all. You want to tap out in MMA, it's over. It's over. Once I call for your surrender, once I call for your submission, that means it's over. And what does surrender indicate? Go back to the plane. What did he want? He don't want no negotiations. What did he say on the plane? The end. The unconditional surrender means this is over. It's ending, period. Not like, hey, can I negotiate? Can we lob a couple more missiles? Now you're done. Now there's something flying over you, and we're waiting for you to wave the white flag. And if you don't wave that white flag, we're about to evaporate you. They don't cover this stuff in the media. They don't show you word by word, by timeline. I mean, it's very, very simple what he's saying right now. He's telling these people, it's over. The end. Finish. Surrender, Dorothy. And that's where he's left it. He has not posted since that post. And now he's back in Washington. And probably the next thing we're going to hear in the news, SB and some of the mods will probably hit me up if it happens, or when it happens. But we're probably going to be hearing the next negotiation is negotiating the terms of your surrender. I get to keep this money. I don't get to do this. You're not going to, whatever it is. Those of you, well, probably not many of you, but if you look through history and think of times when we had people surrender to us. Think of World War II when Japan had to come in and supplicate. It's over. You dropped those two big things on us, and Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and yeah, we're done. We're done. What happened? It was the end. And unconditional surrender. It's over. It is essentially over. There may be some factions in Iran that want to fight back. There may be some people there who've got some weapons hidden, but they're probably going to get vaporized too. So one of the things people kept complaining about was so-called forever wars. This isn't a forever war. When you've already got to the point, without really anything happening, that you're calling for somebody's surrender, that's pretty much telling you it's not a forever war. So everybody who's been complaining and screaming and all this kvetching on Twitter, shut up. It's not going to be a forever war. He called for their unconditional surrender. I can't put it any more plain than that. All right, so let me take a break here for a second and introduce you to one of our new sponsors here.
Trump country is booming. We're building, hiring, and winning in America because energy tax credits put America first. Building new factories in our communities, bringing manufacturing jobs home, and creating a stronger middle class.
Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country. More production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers.
And America's comeback depends on American energy. President Trump, keep what works. Don't repeal energy tax credits.
All right, so a quick update for you guys. Right now, D.C. politicians are trying to kill the energy tax credits that are actually bringing manufacturing back from China and putting Americans to work. These credits are fueling American energy dominance, rebuilding our supply chains, and hitting China where it hurts. We're not talking this in theory. We're talking real jobs, real factories, real results right here in America. Repealing them would kill millions of U.S. jobs, gut $1 trillion from our economy, and hand China the win. President Trump, don't let Congress pull the plug on America's comeback. Protect the tax credits that are putting America first. And that's from the people from Built for America. See, nothing to buy. Just had to let you guys know that. Maybe you can visit their site, Built for America. All right, so let's look at a few comments here, see what you guys are saying at this point. The Iranian people are probably celebrating. There's so many Christians there praying. I would be celebrating if I was an Iranian. Maybe what we should do is show the people in Iran what happens when you unconditionally surrender. See, that's the other part now people aren't even talking about yet. You won't hear anybody talking about this shit. What, didn't happen in Afghanistan, didn't happen, obviously, in Vietnam, but what happens when there's an unconditional surrender? Well, part of that negotiation for surrender is what are you going to do for the people? Well, first of all, tell the women to take off that hood and stuff. That ain't going to happen no more. So all the idiots that think they're going to make their women submit like that's done. Now, this is where American prosperity comes in. America and Israel and probably a few other countries are like, all right, let's go make some money. Let's rebuild Iran. And some of you guys may be like, oh my God, what are we going to really do? Think what happened in Japan. If you've never been to Japan, if you haven't been to Hong Kong, if you haven't seen pictures of what Japan looked like on August 6, 1945, and see what Japan looks like today, how do you think that happened? It is going to be prosperity for so many people. Lots of Americans. Construction, business, McDonald's, Burger King, all the stuff they can't have in Iran right now. All of a sudden, you know what else is going to be flowing from Iran? Oil, baby. Remember what President Trump said during the Gulf War? We are so stupid, we didn't take the oil. What do you think is going to be a part of his unconditional surrender for Iran? Smile, you'll be paying like $1 for gas. Can you imagine if America controlled the oil in Iran? I'm thinking a year or two ahead right now, but if things happen the way they appear to be happening, that President Trump is going to get an unconditional surrender one way or the other. Remember he said, he ain't dead yet. That'd be the most chilling thing anybody could say to anybody. Hey man, we can talk before you die. Just understand, there's no place you can go. We know where you are, and we can talk before you go away. So President Trump is telling him this. I want you guys to have the foresight of where things are going. Because there are plenty of guys like me right now who are in real estate and other side of business go, oh man, do you remember what happened in Japan? Oh yeah, Japan, big money. And they got oil. Japan didn't have oil. So just put yourself right now in the mindset of what President Trump must be thinking. Is that if I'm calling for an unconditional surrender, I'm not just calling about regime change. I'm talking about huge business. I'm talking about a huge Trump hotel right there on the Mediterranean or wherever it is that the Strait of Hormuz. We're all gonna be rich. Which I know some people just went, oh my God. You're not talking about money, are you? Hell yes, this is all about money. If you don't think that this is about big money, you're missing it. Think how much oil Iran puts out. Think what would happen if the United States controlled all that oil. And in the next hour, couple hours, we may find out exactly that, who controls those oil fields. Have you thought about that? I don't know. That's Callie is in the pooper. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yep, Nick, you're right. We helped Germany rebuild. Yep, look what those things came. Gas went up by 20. Black gold, Texas tea, Iranian tea. Absolutely, the Caspian Sea. Okay, that's the waterfront over there. That's colonization? No, it's called how things evolve. When the Vikings came and other people put flags in the ground and said, it's ours, we'll help you, or not. What would happen if America doesn't do the so-called colonization? I'm not trying to colonize you. I'm just going to make sure we get paid and that we're going to take control of these oil fields. You can do what you want, but you got to let them, Walmart and, Wendy's and Burger King and Costco. We're all going to show up here. We're going to help you. Let me talk to you about colonization real quick. I live in South Florida. And some of you may not have been here to South Florida. You may not understand this concept. But we have a whole lot of Native American tribes. Whole bunch. One big one is called the Seminoles. The Seminoles were a tribe that was trying to exist. And then all of a sudden, somebody said, you know what? Why don't we let the Seminoles have casinos? Then the same up in Connecticut, I forget what tribe that is. But they're like, hey, what about us? We're a tribe. Can we get a casino? Sure. Mohegans. You can have the Mohegan Sun. Yeah. Now, what happens to those people that you said were colonized? They're billionaires. They're absolute billionaires. So colonization only goes so far because when you start talking about that kind of money, crazy. What's it say? Never been to Florida. Yeah, you could go down here. There's, let's see, I don't even know all the tribes. Miccosukee has one. That's in southwestern Dade County. The Seminoles have two. One not too far from here in Coconut Creek, plus the one in Hollywood. And they have one in Tampa. So they've got like 3 or 4 of them just in a very close circle. Now, of course, being from Connecticut, I know about the Mohegan Sun. And they're making billions. Not millions, billions. And they give it to the people. They give it to members of the tribe. They all get a percentage. They all get a check. What's wrong with that? I don't know. They sure are billionaires, Barry, right here in Florida. So I'm just projecting. You guys may not like it, but I'm projecting if he indeed is calling for an unconditional surrender. That's something you have to think about because maybe you didn't understand, or what does that even mean? Well, unconditional surrender means basically we own it. And the people on the plane didn't think about that because whoever it is, whoever it is that you're kissing the ring to is now your daddy. So I don't see there being any way that President Trump lets the Israelis accept the surrender. Y'all need to go back over there. He's not going to let the Palestinians accept the surrender. Who do you think is going to get the surrender? The man calling for it. And now you got a whole bunch of people, even in this chat, are sitting back going, oh my gosh, is it that bad? Think about it. Let me just bring it up again, because this is the part where, at this point, a lot of people probably haven't thought this far out. And they get mad at me for bringing it up. But I want you to understand, what the hell do you think that means? Let it sink in. And understand that right now, President Trump is applying the submission hold to Iran. Unconditional surrender. Nothing else. Time for talking is over. Bow down and come to your leader. Democrats can complain. Everybody can complain. But at this point, I see where you are. And now I'm playing a video game where I'm just going to go boop. And you're going to go poof. And we're going to take over. Maybe I'm... Okay, let me try it this way. Maybe I'm being too cynical and smiling too much. Maybe you want to... You want this kind of, empathy. Oh my gosh, Iran is no longer going to be a country. It's such a shame. They're going to lose their sovereignty. That's the least of it. Get over it. When the President of the United States, and notice there's no other countries going, hey, that's not fair. No, you know why? Because a bunch of them are saying, how can we get a piece of this? Can we sell BMWs in here? The Germans probably think, oh yeah, well, you can sell some BMWs. And, and on and on and on. Conquest. Conquering. That's how, unfortunately, this world was made. The British Empire. The Roman Empire. They didn't own those places. They showed up with an army and stuck a flag in the ground. And, it's ours. It's not nice. It's not something to celebrate. That's how the world's made. Does it make you upset that people have been conquered over the years? That people have gotten to a point where their ability to be sovereign is just gone? Do you think it's barbaric? Maybe it is. I can't tell you how you feel. But I do know what unconditional surrender means. So maybe people should sit back and just think that for a second. What the hell does that mean? What does it mean? What's it say? Ulysses Grant earned the name Unconditional Surrender during the Civil War. Look it up. What does unconditional surrender mean? It means I own your planes, I own your guns, I own your missiles, I own everything. It is now mine. We are now going to put a flag in the middle of the town square. And if you doubt me, think what could it, anything else could it possibly be? You're surrendering. You're giving up. White flags. We're sorry. Well, take your flag down. Put the new one up. Old glory. It's just like when President Trump posted, "Get out." We don't know who that was directed at. Meaning they probably were seeing the guy scurrying or something. It could have been crazy. Let's see here. Means you're done. James went and looked and said Iran pumps 3.3 million barrels a day. What? When did this happen? Like Saturday? You're telling me they took over a country in like 3 or 4 days? Without really getting involved? What's the upside of this? What's the ROI on what President Trump is doing right now? Think about that. Hopefully, no American lives. Maybe a couple missiles, some gas to send the ships over, and that's it. Now it's like we got you cornered like a rat, and it's extermination time. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that too strong of a word? Let's see here. You're a perfect pair. I don't love it. I've been here from the start. I'm just saying what the man said. You guys can quibble over what it actually means. But what I am over and tired of, and will not even give much air anymore, are the people on X and on YouTube bitching and moaning. Oh, we shouldn't do this, and we don't want this, and like the other guy said, MAGA's not going to support you. Good. I would love for the people who aren't really MAGA, so I'm not going to call anybody names, and you guys don't have to call anybody names. I would want those people to please show your head. Stick your head up so we know the bullshitter that you really are. The person who really wants clicks and likes and views. Put your head up. Let us all know. Tell us that you don't believe in President Trump. There's no room for these people. None. Zippo. If you're doing it for clicks and likes and views, you're about to meet your unconditional surrender, because every single one of you should look at these people with chagrin moving forward. It's like, what do you mean? What are you doing? Questioning the president that you voted for, that you were right behind. No, there's nothing wrong with an opinion. You could say, I don't want war. You can say, I don't like this. But like I've told you many times, playing football and in the huddle, I don't like the play that was called. It doesn't mean I took off my uniform. And these people are like, I don't like the play that was called, and so MAGA, bye. He's going to lose so much support. Why would you say that? Why would you say he's going to lose so much support instead of just saying what you really mean? I'm not going to support him anymore. What the hell are you worried about what we're doing? Be honest at least. If you're out there telling other people that Trump's going to lose support, what you're actually saying is you are no longer going to support him. Just say it. Be honest. You know what was funny? I saw this posted by J.D. Vance. And this underscores everything I just said. Tell them to screw off. Be truthful. Your bread's buttered by one of these countries or something. Because I'm right behind President Trump, and I don't give a crap what anybody else thinks or subscribes or unsubscribes, because that's the guy I have spent decades reading about, and I'm like, that's somebody I can salute. So listen to what the vice president had to say. And he's telling those people who are waffling, look, I'm seeing this from the inside, and I'm admittedly biased towards our president and my friend, but there's a lot of crazy stuff on social media, so I want to address some things directly on the Iran issue. First, POTUS has been amazingly consistent over 10 years that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's specifically what I said to you earlier. There's been no waffling. It's been completely unwavering. This is it. Period. Can't have a weapon. Over the last few months, he encouraged his foreign policy team to reach a deal with the Iranians to accomplish this goal. The president has made clear that Iran cannot have any uranium enrichment, and he said repeatedly that this would happen one of two ways: the easy way or the hard way. Second, I've seen a lot of confusion over the issue of, quote, civilian nuclear power and uranium enrichment. These are distinct issues. Iran could have had civilian nuclear power without an enrichment, but they rejected it. Did you know that? Meanwhile, they've enriched uranium far above the level necessary for any civilian purpose. They've been found in violation of their non-proliferation obligations by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is hardly a right-wing organization. It's one thing to want civilian nuclear energy. It's another thing to demand sophisticated enrichment capacity. And it's still another to cling to enrichment while simultaneously violating the non-proliferation of obligations and enriching right to the point of weapon-grade uranium. Anybody disputing that? I've yet to see a single one good argument for why Iran needed to enrich uranium well above the threshold for civilian use. I've yet to see a single good argument for why Iran was justified in violating its non-proliferation obligations. I've yet to see a single good pushback against the IAEA's findings. So he's telling you right there, those of you who are bitching and complaining, you haven't shown one iota of proof or documentation or substantiation to why Iran would be doing this other than to create a weapon. Continue. Meanwhile, the president has shown remarkable restraint in keeping our militaries focused on protecting our troops and protecting our citizens. He made, and this is where people are probably going to get all up in their feelings. He may decide he needs to take further action to, and here's the word, end Iranian enrichment. Not negotiate. He may take action to end it. The decision ultimately belongs to the president. And of course, people are right to be worried about foreign entanglement after the last 25 years of idiotic foreign policy. But I believe the president has earned some trust on this issue, and having seen this up close and personal, i.e., you don't know what we know, I can assure you that he is only interested in using the American military to accomplish the American people's goals. Whatever he does, that is his focus. In other words, shut up. I love it. I've seen stuff, the president knows stuff that you don't know, and based on the stuff that we know, he's going to end this one way or another. And the rest of everybody else can say he's going to lose support. Oh, he's gonna, if anything happens, you know how long that loss of support will be? If President Trump somehow obtains an unconditional surrender and we take over the oil and people start getting $1.50 gas, that support's gonna come back very fast. You see, at this point, you're being motivated, not you. People are being motivated by the media. They're being motivated by influencers who have whatever motivation they have. I don't know what drives Mark Levin. I don't know what drives Tucker Carlson. None of my business. My business, and I've made it my business, to trust Trump. Have an opinion. There may be things I don't like, but I trust Trump. So at this point, that's what you have to make a decision. If you're worried about what Mark Levin's saying, if you're worried about what Charlie Kirk is saying, if you're worried about what Ben Shapiro is saying, or Tucker, or Alex Jones, if you're worried about all them, you have to think of your mindset and your priority, because the one person that I'm pretty sure that the Ayatollah Asahola is worried about is President Trump. Everybody else can say whatever they want on social media. The Ayatollah is sitting back going, oh man, is it really checkmate? Oh, it's checkmate. It's just a matter of how long we're going to let you before you surrender. Doesn't matter what everybody else is saying. I don't care. They're all saying stuff. Doesn't matter. You have one person to answer to right now, Ayatollah. One person. Not Netanyahu, not Alex Jones, none of them. You got one person who's sitting back and going, what's it going to be? That's some scary shit. That's some scary stuff. Let me see what you guys are saying. Not bad for an 80-year-old. Yeah, it's BS. President Trump's not going to lose any support. Democrats will want to impeach immediately. Yeah, they'll do it. Media promotes emotion, not facts. And that's why I just wanted to bring this to you guys, because I know there's so many people out there talking crap. Even in the comment that guy made, oh, he's going to lose a lot of support, because this is their opportunity to do that, to drive division. I'm just watching him, and I'm listening to what he says. That's it. That's it. So, let me see here. I am going to go with the Kelly Loeffler interview, but let me talk to you about Lear Capital. Uncertain times, you need to take action. Make sure you've got a hedge of protection. Make sure you understand that you're well grounded, and that if anything hits the fan, if China decides to get involved or Russia gets involved, that you aren't left holding the bag. Down here, we now are using gold and silver as currency. So the old adage, well, you can't really buy anything with gold and silver, not anymore. Down here, it is transactional. So take a listen. We're in a very volatile time right now. There's plenty of financial uncertainty. Now is not the time to be speculative. And I'm also speaking from a personal perspective. I'm buying income-producing real estate, and I'm buying gold and silver. A lot of people don't know the difference between the economy and the stock market. And too many people listen to the news and social media. That'll get you in trouble. Let's face it. It's obvious that a lot of people have an agenda they're not telling you about. Right now, your best bet is stability. And that means you might need to build a hedge against global volatility. May I recommend gold and silver to you? Real gold and real silver. Not paper, not certificates. Actual gold and silver. What gold and silver can give you is absolute peace of mind. A stock is only as good as the company behind it. It's merely a piece of paper. One of the things I can tell you is that many people are finding out the hard way that some of their investments were built on quicksand. Gold will never be worth zero. Silver will never be worth zero. If you want to calm some of your fears, give my friends at Lear Capital a call today at 800-601-5430 or go to learberry.com. Just so you know, Lear Capital has over 27 years of experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, and over $5 billion in trusted transactions. And Lear is the only gold company with a 24-hour risk-free purchase guarantee. You don't pay unless you're 100% satisfied. So go to learberry.com. If you want peace of mind, give my friends at Lear Capital a call at 800-601-5430. Or look down here below and go to learberry.com. And don't forget to ask about getting up to $15,000 in free gold or silver with a qualifying purchase. Don't wait. Do it now. Nobody knows what tomorrow holds. Be safe. I just want to say thank you to the Fanfare community. And if you're new here, I'd like to take a moment and welcome you. If you watch my videos, you've probably realized at this point that this isn't your usual podcast. The difference is that every single day I try to make this show an open conversation amongst friends. You see, I believe that speaking to friends, here and in your own circle offline, is the best way to push back against all the lies being told by the Democrats and the media. I encourage people in this community to welcome each other, and in doing so become a source of support for those seeking to unplug from the matrix. If you'd like to communicate on a deeper level, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, but if you'd really like to surround yourself with like-minded patriots, join our free and private X group by going to fanfareshop.org/group. When you join this free group, a few things will happen. One, if you haven't used X before, you can use X without venturing into the sewer that it sometimes can be. Two, you can share content with friends that you meet here. 3, you will get notified every time I go live, so you can't count on YouTube notifications. And 4, and this might be most important, you get content that I can't share on YouTube or Rumble. So please take a moment and join our free and private X group. Just go to fanfareshop.org/group. Remember, it's members only. There are 16,000 plus people in that group right now, getting close to 17,000. To join our free and private members only X group, just go to fanfareshop.org/group. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to
Main Street is winning again because President Trump is putting American jobs and workers first. Nearly 500,000 new jobs, prices at their lowest level since 2021, tax cuts that will deliver more opportunity and greater wealth, and trillions in new investment powering our industrial dominance. Our small businesses are finally looking forward to the future. It's the great American comeback, and it's coming to a Main Street near you.
Hey everyone, Kelly Loeffler. I've just come from a meeting with my former colleagues in the Senate. They understand how important small business is. The One Big Beautiful Bill is a small business bill. In fact, it's the most important small business bill we've ever had in the history of this country. Why? Because it makes permanent the 23% pass-through deduction. It creates immediate expensing for capital investments, for R&D, and for Made in America. It's pro-worker. It creates more take-home pay for our workers. No tax on tip, no tax on overtime. It doubles the child tax credit. Many of these benefits happen now in 2025. That's the urgency in getting this bill passed. We know Main Street is spring-loaded for growth, for investment and hiring. I'm so grateful for President Trump fighting for small business every single day, and the SBA is so proud to support this bill.
Hey everybody, I've got a great interview for you today. I've got the head of the SBA, Kelly Loeffler, here today. Kelly, how are you doing? Thank you very much for taking the time out of what is obviously a busy schedule that you guys have up there.
Well, it's great to be with you. I'm thrilled to be in Florida today, so perfect day to connect.
All right, so I know you're on a time schedule, so I'm going to do rapid and we'll see what we can do here. The big, beautiful bill, as it relates to small businesses, why is it so good for small business?
Well, Barry, I'm glad you asked. The One Big Beautiful Bill is essentially a small business pro-worker bill. And so it does so many things for small business. Foremost, it makes the small business pass-through deduction permanent. Small businesses, thanks to President Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, benefited from a 20% pass-through deduction. That expires at the end of this year. If it expires, small businesses will see a doubling of their tax rate. Small businesses can't bear that. They operate on narrow margins. They want to know that that's going to be there. That's what this bill does. It provides for 100% expensing of capital investments. Like if you're a restaurant, you can buy a new stove. If you're a trucking company, you can get a new truck and expense 100% of it. So look, the list goes on and on. This is a small business, pro-business bill.
Can you explain briefly what the pass-through is? There might be people here who are considering a new business who don't understand what the pass-through means.
Absolutely. So there's a section of the IRS code called 199A. It's basically allows you to deduct currently % of your business income, the qualifying business income, from your taxable earnings. And that provides significant relief. If you think about the corporate tax code, your corporation tax at 21%, but small business pass-throughs are taxed at personal income rates, which is a problem when you are have higher income, and essentially prevents you from investing in the way that you'd like to, and buying new capital equipment, hiring employees, training them, and so forth. So it gives you that room to do future investing and hiring.
Great. Now I have an older demographic. I'll use that word nicely. What incentives or programs are available for seniors and older people to begin starting a new business?
Well, Barry, it's never too late to start a new business. And we see that at the SBA. And that's why we allow people between the ages of 18 and 115 to qualify for a small business administration-backed loan. Wow. And our loans are provided through the private sector lenders that we know across our main streets in America. Thousands of lenders offer SBA loans. But my message is essentially, if you qualify, this administration will consider you for a loan. We're no longer picking winners and losers like the last administration did. We're making sure that they're available on the basis of simple qualification, and we're trying to streamline that process. We know also that there is what is called a silver tsunami going on, which is the generational hand down of small businesses. So there's a lot of small businesses available if you don't want to start your own small business. But we see small business formation being very young right now.
With the volatility going on in the world, and we don't know what's going to happen over in the Middle East, why is it still a good time to start a business in America?
Well, there's no better time than under President Trump's administration. I mean, you see his agenda is incredible for small businesses. Every time I talk to the president, he reminds me, Kelly, small business is big business, small business. And you can see that in his agenda. Look, we're working on cutting taxes. We're deregulating. We're establishing fair trade for the first time in 3 decades after our towns across America were hollowed out from manufacturing, making sure that our small businesses can compete on a level playing field. So in terms of what we're seeing in our deal flow and in loan volume, our loan volume 80% in President Trump's first 100 days compared to Biden's first 100 days, and then 20% increase compared to when Biden left office. Wow. So the confidence we're seeing on Main Street is incredible, and it's everything from sole proprietorships up to small manufacturers, because manufacturing is made up 99% of small businesses. That's typically manufacturers under 500 employees, and Made in America is back. So I think a lot of people are participating in that already.
How difficult is it to get a SBA loan, or I don't know if SBA does grants, but an SBA loan or grant? What are the criteria and how long does it take?
Well, we do public-private partnership lending, which means we rely on Main Street lenders to make the loans, and then the SBA offers typically somewhere between a 75 and an 85% government guaranteed backed loan that the bank does. The qualifications are very clear that we've put them on our Gov website. They apply to everyone, and our lender partners really walk you through that process. So it shouldn't be hard, but it should be rigorous. And we have restored the lending standards that the Biden administration destroyed under the last administration in attempting to make these grants. Right. And what we want to make sure is that taxpayer money is repaid and that taxpayers are made whole and small business succeeds. That's in our very best interest. We know that small businesses are job creators. They're the ones that make Main Street work. They offer so many of us our first jobs in this country. And it's very aligned with small businesses and taxpayers.
Sometimes people think small business, but they're thinking big business. So if you brought it down to like the gig economy, someone who's out there and they put together an LLC and are driving Uber at night or delivering groceries during the day, how does the big beautiful bill affect someone at that level?
Well, first of all, it stops really kind of weaponizing your PayPal or your Venmo account by forcing the IRS on you after you have $600 in that account. But moreover, it really affects wage earners of all types. A gig economy worker will make sure that their current tax rates are protected. If this bill doesn't pass, the average American will 22% increase in taxes. And it is a risk. Every single Democrat is going to vote for a $4 trillion tax increase on the backs of hardworking Americans, including gig economy workers, including seniors, everyone. So these are the stakes here. It's to make sure that we can have more gig economy workers and that they can flourish in their sole proprietorships. They can go on to live the American dream on their terms.
Being a little bit self-perspective here, is there anything in the big, beautiful bill that can help, creators like me, podcasters, video editors, people of that nature? Absolutely. I mean, just take, for example, 100% immediate expensing of investments. You want to buy a new camera, you want to buy equipment. You're a small restaurant, you want to buy a new stove. You can expense those capital investments in the year that cost is incurred. Obviously, that's very helpful to cash flow when you're paying your taxes. If you write down those costs in that year, and we know small businesses, cash flow is everything. Right. So that's one excellent example of that. Just expensing. Bigger picture, it supports Made in America manufacturing, which allows you to build a factory here and expense it in the first year. Wow. So it's everything from creators to car manufacturers. Wow. So when you say expense, is it 100%? Is there a certain percentage that you could, is it a deduction or what do you mean when you say you can expense out your capital improvements? Yeah, so you will take the full cost of it against your tax bill. So what you've got is the ability, and then carrying it forward. So it's a benefit that is realized in real time, and that's why it supports your cash flow. So instead of sending that money to the government, you're able to reinvest it in your business in real time. Oh, fantastic. Well, I did not know that. Excuse my little dog, my little Maltese is out there chirping in the background. So one of the problems I have when I speak to a lot of people in our videos is almost like this brainwashing that has happened, and they're not understanding what President Trump is advocating. They think prosperity is out of reach, with President Trump's vision and his perspective and the charge that you have, can you speak to people and let them know that this self-limiting ideology isn't going to be a hindrance unless they allow it to be a hindrance, that President Trump is actually trying to promote prosperity?
You're absolutely right, Barry. That's why President Trump really won in a landslide across the popular and electoral vote, because people have that sense that what made America great was our ability to make things, to build things, the American dream. And we've been told over and over that we need the government to help us, that the government's the answer. I was in the private sector for 30 years. That's why I got involved in public, because the government overreach, the crowding out of small business, of opportunity for workers to live the American dream by being suffocated in taxes and red tape. We've got to get back to an America of strength and of independence, of believing in the American worker. President Trump does that. He's restoring opportunity through respecting American opportunity, whether it's made in America, keeping our taxes low, getting the government out of our everyday business, deregulating, cutting taxes. So, look, President Trump is going to help make this possible, but we need the Senate and the House to come together sooner than later to open those doors for America, because we already see predictions for GDP growth that we haven't seen in years. Joe Biden wanted to make this country dependent on the government. Trump is going to make sure that America is great on a world stage.
Absolutely.
Thanks to President Trump, opportunity and prosperity are returning to America. The One Big Beautiful Bill will deliver the largest tax cut in history. It will make the small business tax deduction permanent, creating 1 million jobs and billions in economic opportunity. When you see the flag flying above our offices here, we'll remember all that it stands for, ever thankful for the privilege of working under its streaming stars and stripes, and for the most pro-business president in American history.
So tell me about the Save SBA from Sanctuary Cities Act. That seems pretty big, but nobody's really talking about it in the news.
Well, Barry, it's common sense, right? If a city is not going to keep its people safe, its small businesses safe, or its workers safe, can't locate there. And so we've made it a day one priority to move our regional offices out of sanctuary cities. And then Congress liked the bill, so the concept so much, they passed a bill in Congress to codify that, to make it permanent beyond my leadership of the administration. And boy, were we quickly validated when riots broke out in Los Angeles, literally steps from the SBA office within days of that bill passing, and in New York. So that was a bipartisan passage of that bill that we saw. People understand that Democrat mayors are not in their cities safe.
No, not at all. Now, with the SBA pushing a campaign, you're traveling, you're in Orlando and Tampa today to bring prosperity back to Main Street. But in this digital age and with the rise of AI, is traditional Main Street obsolete?
Well, absolutely not. In fact, Main Street is powered by technology. And as we go out across the country talking to small businesses, a surprising number of small businesses are already engaging with AI. We've even amended some of our lending standards to allow small business lending to go toward investments in technology to further automate their business. I mean, small businesses, if anyone, are doing more with less. You know, they wear many hats. If they can have payroll automation, accounting automation, help with digital marketing through AI, there's so many great things that will unleash the ability of Main Street to continue to be our innovators and job creators through the use of technology.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had to rank like in the top three, I won't go top five because that'd be like too many right now, but the top three, what are the top three opportunities you see for people in America right now?
Well, there are so many. I don't know where to start because I've been seeing it as I travel across the country. I mean, we're seeing a major shift in this country in terms of our workforce. I'm calling it a new collar boom. Under President Trump, he created the blue collar boom, which started to bring jobs back to this country to have made in America. Right. The new collar boom is the intersection of manufacturing and blue collar, which the integration of technology. I also think, look, between President Trump's agenda of tax cut deregulation and fair We're seeing opportunities for Made in America, for having a small business that can compete internationally for the first time. And then the last one I would say would just be the opportunity to start your own small business based on the experience you have, no matter your age. So I'm seeing it in the numbers. Record number of small businesses are starting or being bought and sold. And that's why the SBA is so central right now. It's why our lending volume is up. And it's great to see banks are back into the business of lending because they know President Trump is going to drive a pro-growth economy that gets taxes and regulations off the back of borrowers and will allow them to pay their loans. So my message is get involved in the economy because there's never been a better time.
Bingo. And we got to get this big, beautiful bill passed because otherwise it won't get codified and who knows what would happen. God forbid these idiots get back in power. So I think it's extremely important that everybody push the senators to go ahead and get this done. What do you think the likelihood of it getting done? I think President Trump had said by July that he expected that this would possibly be voted on.
I would love July 4th. I mean, talk about Independence Day, independence from government taxes, independence as a great nation. I think it can be done. I spoke at the Senate lunch last week, the Senate Republican caucus. I know there's will, and where there's the will, there's a way to come together and get it done sooner than later, because small businesses are making decisions today for the future, and they need to know that's there. I think this economy is spring-loaded for getting it done, and they know that every single Democrat is going to vote for a massive tax increase on the backs of hardworking Americans and small businesses. So we have to capture this moment, and I'm confident that they will.
Last question for you, because I know you got to run. I'm checking the time here, so I'll make this one quick. We've seen Tom Homan and Kristi Noem doing everything they can to ramp up deportations. We're also seeing this meatpacking plant in Nebraska. They had a whole bunch of people rounded up because they were not supposed to be here, let me just put it that way. But at the same time, we saw that they had a record number of new applicants come in who wanted these jobs. So that whole misnomer that people have been putting out there that these people are doing jobs that Americans don't want, are you finding that in your travels to be not true whatsoever?
Absolutely. This narrative that we have to bring people into work is false. And that is one example of it. We need to have an immigration and legal immigration program that works. But until then, we cannot tolerate illegal immigration. We have to deport illegal immigrants. I'm grateful for the work of Secretary Noem and Tom Homan, because we have to execute this quickly and make sure that people that want to get back involved in the economy, get back into the workforce, can do so. We have 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid right now. It's bankrupting not just the federal government, but our cities. You've seen California put tens of billions of dollars, in New York. It's unfair to hardworking Americans who are having to fund this. And that's what this tax bill, the one big beautiful bill, builds a border wall and says, we're going to deport, and then we're going to keep illegal aliens out of this country, and we're going to do it the right way and get hardworking Americans those opportunities they deserve.
Absolutely. Well, I know you got to run. You're going to be up in Tampa and Orlando today. Please, with everything going on, and especially what we saw over the weekend, be safe out there.
Thank you, Barry. God bless. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to take comments about the interview with Kelly Loeffler in a second, but I'm going to jump right now to the State Department press conference that's getting ready to go on. Actually, it's in progress, but I started it from the beginning, so you guys won't miss a second of it. And here we go.
Welcome back. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Everyone's set? We're good? Great. Welcome aboard, everyone. Thank you again for being here. For generations, the Middle East has been dealing with the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, with the attack on Israel on October 7th by Hamas, reminding us of what's at stake. Due to the wisdom of the American people, President Trump's election to a second term has offered the world a chance to see an American leader committed to solving many of the world's existential threats with determination. Now, as the conflict between Israel and Iran continues, President Trump has also been clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also stated that fact as he has traveled the world working to implement President Trump's vision of peace and security. That statement has also been uttered from this podium many times. The fact that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon is clear. As the White House reminds us, since taking office, President Trump has clearly stated no fewer than a dozen times that Iran cannot, and for anyone who's unclear on that fact. President Trump has made the same pledge no fewer than 40 times before taking office, even as far back as 2011. One of the highest priorities of the Trump administration is the safety and security of the American people. To that end, the Department of State has established the Middle East Task Force to help coordinate support for U.S. citizens, our U.S. diplomatic missions, and personnel and diplomatic engagement. The task force is operating 24 hours a day. Over the past week, to help keep U.S. citizens informed, we have issued more than 30 security alerts to countries in the region and updated the travel advisories for Iraq and Israel. We remind U.S. citizens not to travel to Israel or Iraq and not to travel to Iran under any circumstances. We continue to monitor the complex and rapidly evolving situation on the ground as we continue to assess and address the needs of U.S. citizens. We urge all U.S. citizens to regularly visit travel.state.gov for the latest travel advisories and security updates, and to enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, also known as STEP, to receive timely alerts and guidance from the State Department. For Americans needing assistance, and there we have a bit of the website there for you, call +1 202 501 4444. That number again is +1 202 501 4444. If you're on that website, you can also click on that red box. It will take you to a page where you can search for the embassy of your interest, where you are, where you would like to connect to be able to get help from the embassy in the country where you are. And of course, the number's there as well for your closest U.S. embassy. I also want to add a couple other things here as we're dealing with this. It is certainly a rapidly evolving dynamic, but to conclude the topper here today, I want to recognize the State Department and other U.S. government teams around the world working under threat on behalf of the American people, particularly those in Israel and Ukraine, who spent another night sheltering in bunkers as they came under attack. Our priority is the safety of Americans overseas and here at home. It is the priority of Secretary Marco Rubio. It is the priority of everyone who works in this building and the thousands of American citizens who work anonymously and whom you will never see, who are working in embassies and consulates around the world and working with those local nations to be there for American citizens and to help facilitate American diplomacy. Our priority is the safety of Americans, yes, here at home, but also overseas. We thank all of those working on behalf of the American people, all of you watching from home and from around the world. We thank you, and for everyone around the nation, we know and honor your work as we begin another briefing here, ready to take your questions. All right, yes, sir.
Yes, hi, Tammy, thanks. Thanks for that. Could you give us some more details on this task force, how it's going to work, and specifically if it's going to help Americans potentially leave the region, be repatriated, or depending on the countries that they're in, and any more details you can give on that?
Right. I won't be giving you, just as a reminder of how today is a little bit of a different day for the briefing. There is always things that I can't say to you. And yet we have a long back and forth. Sometimes we have a little bit of a debate. I won't engage in that today. My responses will be perhaps a bit quicker than usual, and I'll be moving around more quickly to reach as many of you as I can. There will be less than I can answer for you because of the circumstances that we're dealing with around the world. So it is, just want you to know, it's not personal, but we're working on certain things like the task force as an example. The task force is a group of people who are working, taking the calls of people, of American citizens around the world, making sure that they get connected with what they may need in that region. I won't go into the details of all that the task forces do, of course, but it's about information, making sure people here at the State Department and people that we get the information we need, but also people around the world, American citizens, get directed to the information that they may need as well. So I'll leave it at that, but this is something that the State Department does when there's a situation that requires it, and this is one of those times.
Tammy, I'm sorry. Could I just ask
Sure,
about the
Matt,
phone
sure,
number?
of course.
The phone number that you get, if you call that number, which I can do right now, who do you get?
You get an individual who is
task force, or
no, you don't get the task force. That phone number is a general phone number. The task force is busy, but it is a separate unit that is established to take the calls to assist American citizens who call to the embassies. Particularly, you're going to be referred to embassies who can help you get what it is you need. So good question. Thank you, sir. All right. Yes, Andrea.
Just a quick question. There's some specific consular needs. One in particular that I'm aware of, and there may be more than one, is an American citizen in Iran, where there is no embassy, no consulate.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be of the Swiss protectorate? Would there be other options? Is consular affairs give any advice as to what to do about Americans right now stuck in?
I can't
bad
speak to any
places?
advice or information regarding individuals in Iran at this point.
And what about American Israelis or Israeli Americans either wanting to come out or wanting to get back home? LL, I believe, has resumed flights in some small measure for people who, some people have kids in Israel and they were visiting the States. And they're American citizens. Is there anything that they can do? Where should they call this number?
Well, obviously, if you know, and we encourage every American when you travel, is to contact your local embassy or consulate, let them know you're there, make sure you know where they are, have those numbers, and that's what I would recommend, no matter where you're traveling, but certainly in the Middle East, is know where those entities are, know where the embassy is. So if you're in Israel, obviously it's Tel Aviv or it's Jerusalem.
Are they open?
Well, they will answer their phone. So there's contacts that can happen in the midst of all of this. And of course, I think that's the advice for wherever you are. But clearly, if you're in a certain area, it's obvious in this case that there are certain limitations in that region, and that contact the embassy, the one that is nearest to you, and you will, at the very least, make sure they know where you are, but also they will give you some options for the plans that you would like to make. Yes, Humaira.
Tammy, I understand your limitations, but I have to ask this.
I know you do. It's your job, and I appreciate that. I'm here to take questions, not necessarily always answer them.
Yeah,
Yes,
last night
ma'am.
President Trump said he wants a real end, not a ceasefire. So does the United States support or pursue regime change in Iran? Or are we just talking about dismantling Iran's nuclear enrichment? And would that include United States helping Israel strike Fordo?
Well, I'm certainly not going to characterize what President Trump says or tweets, for that matter. He doesn't need characterizing. He's one of the most transparent, one of the most clear individuals that we've known. I think that we can take his word for his word, but I'm not going to speculate on, in a larger sense, what that would mean. That is up to the president. He is the singular guiding hand about what will be occurring from this point forward, as he has been. And I think that dynamic is pretty clear. He says he wants an end, as he has said about every conflict that he has, as a peacemaker, worked to stop peacefully through diplomacy. That has been his commitment. And he wants these things, as he said about a number of situations, not for a month or 6 months, but durable ends to this nature of forever wars. And that has been his posture, and that's his posture now.
Okay, I have an easier follow-up.
Yes, ma'am.
How many people...
I'll take a hard one, too. I'd say.
How many people so far have contacted U.S. missions in Israel or elsewhere, American citizens, seeking help to depart the country that they're in the Middle East?
Yes, I won't discuss those details or the numbers involved with the
Are you
embassies.
guys planning to facilitate charter planes to get people out or military evacuation?
I will not discuss what our plans are in that regard. Yes, ma'am.
Just to follow up on that really quickly.
Sure.
Are you guys considering at all operations that would help Americans who want to leave the region from evacuating?
I know that our commitment is to the safety and security of Americans around the world. All right? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Tammy, would the U.S. government like to see regime change in Iran?
First of all, I'm certainly not going to remotely address that. It would require me to speculate or speak on behalf of the president, which I will not do. What we've seen, though, is clear, is months and repeated statements that all he wants is a peaceful world. His activity and the nature of the actions that the United States has taken and his special envoys have been rooted in one thing, which is negotiations, looking for diplomatic solutions to generational problems that he wants solved diplomatically. That has been his constant posture. And there has been nothing that has changed in what he wishes for, what he would hope to accomplish. And so, of course, that's not something I'm going to address.
Is the U.S. government and the Israeli government on the same page when it comes to the intelligence about Iran's nuclear weapons program?
That is a question for the White House and perhaps the NSC. That's not something I can answer here. Nadia.
Thank you, Tammy. The president said you want to see Iran offers unconditional surrender. I'm not going to ask you to comment on the president's statement, but I'm going to ask you if the secretary is involved in any kind of diplomatic missions with his allies, with the Germans, with the French, trying to offer something to the Iranians as a way out.
Well, I, again, would not speak on the details of any diplomatic conversations if they occurred, between whom, what those details would be. We know, of course, the secretary and the president were at the G7. Their constant work from the moment they came to office has been and certainly Secretary Rubio, was to open up conversations and to lead the world through diplomacy to make a difference. But that's the only thing that would guide me when it comes to the nature of the decisions they're making at this point. Yes, ma'am.
Without getting into the details of the conversations, is the door to diplomacy with Iran on its nuclear program still open from the U.S. perspective?
That would be a decision made by President Trump.
Have you heard from the Iranians signaling interest in continuing discussions?
That is not something that I can speak to. Yes, ma'am.
Going back to the consular piece of this in Israel, the latest security alert from the embassy there still says that the embassy is not in a place to evacuate or directly assist Americans. Do you have any timeline on when that might change for the Americans who are stranded in that country? And just looking at how quickly the security situation has changed there, the travel alert was raised to a level 4 from a level 3 for the entirety of the country. Is that a sign that the State Department was caught on its back foot a little bit by this change because Americans still can't get help?
I can say the answer to that last question is no. We are working 24/7 to ensure the safety and the security of Americans around the world. I can say that the Department of State is always planning for contingencies to assist private U.S. citizens' departure from crisis areas, and we will alert the U.S. citizenry community if there is and when there is additional information to share regarding their options during any crisis, but certainly this one as well. When it comes to how quickly people can expect a dynamic, the American government, the State Department, our militaries, you've seen all of these assets, all of these departments involved in this dynamic in one fashion or another, are working exclusively for the safety of this nation and the safety of the American people, wherever they may be. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. At the top, you said that you're advising U.S. citizens not to travel to Israel or Iraq or Iran under any circumstances. Do you have any more general guidance for Americans in the Middle East, more broadly as a region? Are there other countries that you're advocating people depart from?
Well, at our website, we have our travel alerts. We also have moved them on our State Department Twitter, our social media accounts. Those are for the public to see. Would there be, what is the specific one for people to look to if they want to look for specific country travel alerts? Is it travel.state.gov? So travel.state.gov, and you will see every travel alert there for you, depending on if you're going to be traveling. It does not just for the Middle East, or if you're in a country right now, you can get your information there. Yes, sir.
Two questions. In your topic, you also recognize American diplomats serving in Ukraine and Israel who spent another night in a bunker.
Yes.
But one of American citizens happened to be killed by the Russians last night in Ukraine. Do you have any comment on will the U.S. government act to protect American citizens in Ukraine?
Yes, we are aware of last night's attack on Kyiv, which resulted in numerous casualties, including the tragic death of a U.S. citizen. We condemn those strikes and extend our deepest condolences to the victims and to the families of all those affected. The president, in the recent past, has made his thoughts clear about striking the civilian areas in that regard. And just to reiterate again, which is at the thread throughout all of the work that we do, is the department has no higher priority than the safety and security of U.S. citizens abroad, and we can confirm the death of a U.S. citizen in Ukraine, and we stand ready to provide all possible consular assistance. And out of respect to the family during this obviously horrible time, we have no further details to offer in that regard.
And second topic, in light of Israel-Iran tension, some of our colleagues from VOA, Persian service, were called back reportedly. How much do the events of past few days signify the role of VOA and other outlets to counter these narratives from U.S. enemies?
Yes, I'm not going to go into the details of what we're doing when it comes to communications into that region or into specific countries. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. Two Iran-related topics. Number one, the administration kind of kept this conflict between Israel and Iran at arm's length over the first few days. And now, since last night and especially into today, we're hearing the president say, we more. We have control over the skies. We know where the supreme leader is. He's kind of taking more ownership of the situation directly. Is that feeling trickling down to this building as well? Is there more of an ownership of the situation in the State Department as well?
She smiled.
Well, I again can't characterize the feelings of the President of the United States. We know that he is our lead. We know that he is the guiding hand. We know that he is one of a few who know all the details, and he is clearly has a mission and an agenda that has involved diplomacy and changing the world for the better for people. In the meantime, of course, things change. Our experiences change. He's making comments that are a reflection of what what matters to him, and of course, what matters to the president matters to the State Department and every other department. I think that it is fair to say that his leadership and his reelection to the second term was because people here in the United States were tired of the status quo. And what the world has seen is a peacemaker and someone who can make a difference, and that's what they're looking forward to.
Question. Can I get in one more?
One more.
There's no special envoy for Iran. Several key locations in the Middle East don't have a confirmed ambassador. We speak often about the day after situation in Gaza. What about the day after situation in Iran? Is the State Department ready for it?
Well, the State Department and the Trump administration, while you may not see things immediately, just because it's not maybe in the news or you're not present for things that occur, doesn't mean they're not occurring. I would remind everyone that the State Department, as I've found out, is sort of like the military. It's 24/7. It is not something that is a basic 8 to 5 dynamic. And it's because people are working around the world constantly. It is literally their mission. Personally, their work is what they do and are committed to. So while you may see a certain thing in a static framework, it doesn't mean that we have not worked on that or are not working on that or that things will begin to happen. So it's just a reminder that it's not about the day after. We are working before, during, and after. It is the anticipation of people with history and an experience when it comes to the history, not just of a building and of a department of the United States, but the history of people working on diplomatic issues throughout the world. And they work for this department. They are committed to those issues. And that is what makes the State Department so effective, in addition to the leadership that is afforded by Marco Rubio, as guided by Donald Trump. Yes, sir, you've been waiting.
Tammy, the NATO summit is in The Hague next week.
Yes.
President Trump and Secretary Rubio came back early from the G7 summit because of the nature of what's going on in the Middle East. if this situation is still unfolding next week, should we expect some kind of changes to the delegation, changes to travel? Should we be anticipating that if the situation is still ongoing?
You know, I can't tell you if anything will change. I know it has not so far, but as we have experienced from day to day or even sometimes hour to hour, things do change. This is a very dynamic event. We've all had our special situations that we're interested in, and we all want diplomacy to work, and we've been cheering on summits and ceasefire discussions, et cetera. This is something that is moving, as things tend to, very rapidly. So I would say that anything is possible, but at this point in time, that is still certainly on the books. But that's going to be obviously that's a presidential trip. That's going to be up to the White House, and I'm sure will be affected by their decision making based on what they see. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Tammy. 2 questions, please. First of all,
can you tell me, sir?
Alan Fisher from Al Jazeera English.
Very good. How do you do?
Fine, thank you. The U.S. Intelligence assessment on March 26 was that Iran was not working towards a nuclear bomb. What's changed? So the U.S. position seems to be that it was very close.
Well, again, I can't speak to intelligence assessments, what may or may not have changed, or to the fact that it is President Trump and his team who are seeing things that matter when it comes to the decision making. And I think that that's what's happened here.
Second question is if the president in his first term was willing to give the Taliban 18 months to come up with a deal, why was there only 60 days given to the Iranians to discuss something which is much more complicated?
Again, I'm not going to discuss the details of the decisions made by the president. Andrea?
No, I'm just saying that was Tulsi Gabbard's testimony in open session to the committees.
Well, yes, and as I've noted, today is not that day. Next, yes? Yes, sir. Tie the white shirt.
Is that, were you just suggesting that?
Andrea, we're moving on, please. Let's please be able to manage this. Sir, in the back there.
Thank you. My question is, the other week we were talking about the negotiations between Iran and the U.S., and the president was very optimistic about it. And now drastically everything has changed, and we are talking almost about a full-scale war between Israel and Iran. How do you name the procedure right now? Has the negotiations failed, or how can we name it? My second question will be, the Iranian state TV has been targeted by the Israeli Air Force. How do you see that? Do you see a state TV channel as a legitimate target?
Well, you'd have to ask Israel about their decisions when it comes to the choices with what they strike and what they don't. And on your first question, which now is already, what was your first question?
My first question, after all this, after these escalations, how do you name? Oh well,
I would say that you would look to the President of the United States for how he is characterizing what has occurred. And he is very open and transparent with that, and does it with his many conversations with the media and also on Truth Social. He is clearly accessible, certainly with his remarks, and he has said a number of things on social media that I think might answer your question. Yes, Saeed.
Thank you. Very quick question on Gaza. Can I do that?
Of course. Well, yeah. Are we continuing still? I will come to you on Gaza, Saeed, I promise. But let's continue with the topic at hand. So yes, sir, in the back.
Thank you so much, Tammy. 2 questions. One question on Iraq related to Iran. Iranian-backed group Qatar Hezbollah threatens the U.S. against interfering in the Israel-Iran conflict, which they said any American intervention in the conflict would prompt the group to target the U.S. interest across the region. How have you reached to the Iraqi government, and what's your message to these groups? And the second question was the State Department's assessment of diplomacy. Have you put diplomacy on a side, or you still believe that diplomacy can work with Iran?
Well, again, I'm not going to comment on the nature of how the White House or the President or the DOD will respond to certain remarks or demands made by someone. So you'll have to ask the DOD regarding their reaction in that regard. I would also, though, I know that the President's Truth Social, he's made it very clear, even I think today, and I think I've got that right here, This is, again, one of the things we have learned about President Trump is that when he tweets, when he speaks, the world watches, and it's the most clear framework that we can learn of his approach. He has, I don't know if I can get to the exact one, but he has made it very clear that, oh yes, here we go. He has noted that we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers, or our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He is making it clear, I think, here regarding certain choices on the ground that are being made, and that what we've asked for regularly is, and what he has made clear is that we were not a part of the initiation of this, certainly. We're not a part of Israel's attacks on Iran. That I think was stated very clearly by both Secretary Rubio and the President. And that's important for them, for people to know. And in this case, of course, the President has made it clear that if Americans are hurt, or in this case, a missile shot at civilians or American soldiers, that there would be a repercussion. I think that would not be surprising. All right, we'll go back. More on Iran. We'll close with you, sir.
Could you tell us about the role of partner countries in mediation efforts with Iran, like Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE? President Trump recently concluded a successful trip to the Middle East. What can you tell us about the role of these partner countries?
It's clearly he went with a goal in mind. He makes deals. He's the best deal maker in the world. These partners in the Middle East that we have, they understand clearly our intentions and what our goals are. Thankfully, again, to the approach and the style of President Trump. I think that when it comes to, again, the best person who could explain his feelings and thoughts about what's accomplished on any issue is the President himself. So I'd refer you back to what he writes and what he is posting on, I think, a very regular basis, which is helpful to people like me. And I think to the world at large as well.
Despite Israel's concerns, Despite Israel's concerns, President Trump is still trying to negotiate with Iran for a nuclear deal, showing that his priority is peace in the region. President Trump has once again recently offered to mediate on Kashmir, but the Modi government says that they don't need Trump's help. Does President Trump need Modi permission to bring peace in South Asia by resolving the Kashmir issue?
Well, yes, this is every country, as President Trump has stated, is a right to define its own future. He offers his help, and it's up to whoever he's offering it to whether or not they'll accept it. We live in a fascinating, exciting time where we've got a man who can make the difference, and he's generous about making that difference. He could have chosen to have this term be about anything other than peace and making America great again. But he's stuck with that. He's committed to that. It is part of his overall commitment to the country. So I would not speak to the nature of another country's decision-making. That's up to them. But I think all of us are grateful that we have a president who's willing to help and wants to help. Now, you have one more on Iran, and then we'll go to Saeed.
Can you confirm or report that former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has been killed in Tehran?
I can't confirm that or report on that or discuss it. All right, thank you. Saeed.
Thank you. Very quick question.
Yes, sir.
In the last 48 hours, or the last 3 days, dozens of Palestinians have been killed at the aid centers and so on. With everybody focused on Iran, this situation still garner some interest or attention from this building or from the United States of America? And are you urging the Israelis to hold off whatever the amount of firepower they're firing at these aid seekers?
Well, we, of course, are always saddened to hear reports about any mass casualty situation or shootings. I don't know who isn't, no matter what the dynamic. The IDF has said a particular incident is under review, and that is helpful, and we'll see what their review comes up with. And in the meantime, I think it is important also when it comes to the nature of the efforts to get aid and food to the Gazans. We now know, can report that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation now is working at 4 distribution sites and has distributed nearly 26 million meals to date. So it is, again, a conversation about whether or not the State Department cares. Every day there's a demonstration. And when we think about the State Department, it's people. It's people who've committed their lives to a diplomatic life, to a life of foreign service, to a political life, to try to make the difference for the world. So we see that manifesting here. And as we also know with today's events and today's conversations, there's a reason why we need people like President Trump and the American commitment to peace abroad. All right? Yes, okay.
Yeah, it's been reported over the weekend that the Secretary of State, the President,
yes,
would expand the travel ban to 36 other countries. A lot of them, from what I understand, are in Africa. There's already 19 countries that are affected by the travel ban to a different extent. Can you share any details, elements you have on this plan?
I can speak a little bit about it, not into the detail of what, about the decision-making or the process in that regard, but we are, of course, committed to protecting our nation's citizens by upholding the highest standards of national security and public safety through our visa process in particular, as laid out in President Trump's Executive Order 14161, protecting the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. The visa adjudication process has got to ensure that U.S.-bound foreign travelers do not pose a threat to the national security and public safety of the United States. That is, I think, a very low bar, and is a bar that every nation should be able to adopt. To protect the national security and national interests of the United States and its people, the Department of State and other U.S. government agencies assess other countries' security capabilities, information sharing, and identity management practices, exploitation of the U.S. visa system, such as overstay rates, and failure to facilitate the repatriation of their removable nationals. So, noting where a country, perhaps as you did, is located, the geo position, the actual location of a country, is not a factor, or what continent that country is on. These are about very specific aspects about whether or not the United States feels it can trust the information we rely on those countries for to determine whether or not they'll get a visa. We don't, we rely on the vetting and the presentation of information from other nations in order to say, yes, you can, or you can't come. In this particular instance, I think that it's clear as we're looking at providing a period of time, countries being told, they don't get to that point where we can trust them, and they've got to change the system, update it, do whatever they need to do to convince us that we can trust the process and the information they have. So that is the goal of this. The Secretary will have the discretion to determine whether or not someone is on that list, as we then also continuously vet the nature of what's happening within these conversations. And the goal is so that we can all move forward, so that people can come to the country. And that's our goal. All right. Yes, sir. Yeah, but I don't know why you're so far in the back, Michelle, but
I'm sorry. I was
with NPR, yes.
Yes. Just following up on that, there was a deadline given for these 36 countries tomorrow to come up with their action plan. I wonder if you've heard back.
No,
from any of them yet?
That's incorrect. I can just tell you that that's not correct. The fact is that they will have a considerable amount of time to rectify whatever the situation is that the State Department is determined is affecting the nature of our trust in how we issue a visa. All right? Yes, and we'll take... Yes, sir, with the beard there. Yes.
Thank you. Has the United States...
Can you tell me your name, sir, and your outlet?
Mustafa Abdo, Shafaq News.
Okay, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Has the United States received any official request from Baghdad to help prevent Israeli overflights in Iraqi airspace? And what is Washington's response to such a request?
Again, you would need to speak to the Department of Defense and the White House regarding that. I won't speak to the details of conversations, certainly about anything of that matter involving any country. And I think that will be it for today. As we return, thank you all for your patience, and I expect to see you again later in the week. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, so we have a very not taking any crap, taking care of business type administration in front of us. I mean, there's so much information going on. And then what is this? Again at 3 o'clock, but I'm not going to cover it. Maybe I'll do it later. They're going to be having a hearing about the Supreme Court, or actually the Ninth Circuit, with the whole Gavin Newsom thing. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Can't even get to everything. I mean, remember when you listened to Rush Limbaugh years ago, and he used to say he had this stack of stuff? I have so many cuts and so many things to get to. I can't get to them all because then something breaking news will happen. So I got to go back. I got to change my thumbnail. I'll use that thumbnail tonight at 7:30 to talk about the old election stuff. So come on back at 7:30. We're going to have that election stuff to talk about that broke. Huge story. I also have some stuff on RFK Jr. and some things with the advertising for pharma, which we're going to cover. And then tonight when I do the Rumble Jump Over, you guys are liking that. I also have an interview with a guy named Cam Higbee, who was in the midst of all the riots and everything. So you're going to get a first-hand perspective about that. SB just hit me up. See how it happens? You have all kinds of stuff planned, and then between SV and Ashley hitting me up with breaking news, I have to stop what I'm saying and go check. Let's see, is this the Iran? Oh, wait a minute, what is this? I don't know if this is what SV sent me, but I just picked up something else too. SV is loading. When is this? All right, so this just posted. I don't know what time it is. Trump to speak after national security briefing. Last chance to make a deal. Trump will address the nation following a closed-door meeting with the National Security Council. No topics listed, but the backdrop is crystal clear. Obviously, we know where you are. We're going to bomb you. You got surrender. I don't know when this meeting is. I'd love to see when that national security meeting is so I could plan to show it. But it doesn't say in here when this national security briefing actually is. So SV, if you can find out when the briefing is, I'd love to discuss it and talk about that. In addition, let me go ahead. I don't know. This just came out. I mean, literally, with 304. This came out 2 minutes ago. Let me just tell you this. OMG. Hold on. I don't know. I haven't been able to verify if this is AI or what, but OMG. Let's listen to this. This is absolutely nuts if it's absolutely correct.
My compatriots, the Islamic Republic has reached its end and is falling. Like a frightened rat, Khamenei has gone underground and lost control of events. What has begun is irreversible. The future is bright, and together we will navigate this sharp turn in history. In these difficult days, my heart is with every defenseless citizen who has been harmed.
All right, before I go too far, I've checked this guy. He is the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi of Iran. Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. I don't know if he's in any power or control over there in lieu of the Ayatollah Assahola, but he has now released this. It's all over right now. He is in exile. He is the exile. Okay, here's the information. Before I go back to that, let me just show you this. He's in exile. He's the exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, just published an address to the nation. All it takes now is a nationwide uprising to put this nightmare to an end. He urges Iran's military, do not stand against the people. It's about to go loose over in Iran. Let's finish listening to this.
And has fallen victim to Khamenei's warmongering and delusions. For years I have tried to spare our homeland the flames of war. The end of the Islamic Republic. It is the end of its 46-year war with the Iranian nation. The regime's machinery of repression is disintegrating. All that is needed is one nationwide uprising to end this nightmare forever. Now is the time to stand, the time to reclaim Iran. All of us, from Bandar Abbas to Bandar Anzali, from Shiraz to Isfahan, from Tabriz to Zahedan, from Mashhad to Ahwaz, from Shahri-Khord to Kermanshah, come to the streets and bring this regime to its conclusion. Do not worry about the day after the Islamic Republic falls. Iran will not suffer from civil war and instability. We have a plan for Iran's future and its prosperity. We are prepared for the first 100 days after the fall, for the transitional period, and for establishing a national and democratic government by the people of Iran and for the people of Iran. To the military, police.
Okay, I just wanted, just so you guys know, I've checked a number of different places here. This doesn't seem to be AI. The reason why the voice isn't matching is because it's a translator. It's not the actual guy speaking, but this seems to be everywhere at this point.
Security and government personnel, many of whom have been sending me messages. I say, do not stand against the Iranian nation to preserve a regime whose collapse has begun and is inevitable. Do not sacrifice yourselves for a decaying system. With the teachers by the side of the nation, stand with the people to save your own lives. Play a historic role in the transition from the Islamic Republic and participate in building Iran's future. A free and prosperous Iran lies ahead of us. May I be with you soon. Long live Iran. Long live the Iranian nation.
Okay, so it caught me. Had to run to the little boys' room. All right, so I don't know what's happening. At this point, we're looking at stuff on X. I did see this happen earlier on Fox.
Breaking news, the president very, very active on his Truth Social this hour. That's because, according to Axios' reporting, President Trump will meet with his national security team in the White House Situation Room at 1 p.m. Eastern today to make decisions about U.S. policy toward the war between Israel and Iran. 3 U.S. officials have told Axios, and this is key, why this matters. The U.S. official said Trump is seriously considering joining the war and launching a U.S. strike against Iran's nuclear facilities, especially its underground uranium enrichment facility in Fordow. It is built into a mountain. They cannot get to it without our bunker-busting weapon. They need it, and they'll need our...
All right, so just to give you an idea of what's going on, their last stranglehold, their last piece of their nuclear facility is like a couple hundred feet deep. There is no bomb made other than other than a bomb that can be flown by the stealth bomber that can get down that far. So are we looking at something where the United States is going to be looking at dropping this one Moab just to break up the entirety of what they're talking about? That may be what President Trump is looking at. He may be looking at getting in and dropping this Moab. So just let you know, this is from 58 seconds ago or so. I don't know, about an hour ago. DNI Tulsi Gabbard is in the Situation Room with President Trump as they discuss next steps. So we're seeing all kinds of activity. What's this here? U.S. fighter jets are being deployed to the Middle East, and the deployment of assets already on the ground are being extended per the Pentagon, getting very serious very quickly. Then SV sent me this, which is something you guys might want to take a look at. Whew. All happened at the same time here. Breaking U.S. warships are moving into striking range. Carrier groups, destroyers, bombers pre-position. The Pentagon says routine, but nothing about this is casual. Red Sea, the Gulf, the Mediterranean, all heating up at once. No big flags and no fanfare either. Is this backup, the next move? Navy assets in the Middle East. Whew. This is all happening as we speak. So it's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, Harris Faulkner, when she just said that President Trump is going, Mario said President Trump is going to speak after the NSC briefing. However, don't know when the NSC briefing is. Harris Faulkner said it was at 1. So I'm not sure when he is going to speak or come out and talk about that. I'm not sure. I wanted to show you this. Tehran is being absolutely destroyed right now. Unfortunately, the people here don't allow me to show bomb videos and stuff going off in that nature. But we're seeing a lot of activity happening in a very short period of time. So I'm refreshing here. Let's see here. What's going on? If I see anything. This is important. Russia has withdrawn support for the Islamic Republic. So whatever's getting ready to happen is going to happen. It's going to be big. It's going to be quick. And I don't think it's going to be, quote, one of those forever wars. I think that it's going to be quite quick. This one just in. Tulsi confirmed she and President Trump are on the same page. Great news. President Trump was saying the same thing that I said in my annual threat assessment. Unfortunately, too many people in the media don't care to actually read what I said. I say it many times. Media hates you. The media absolutely hates you. It's insane what these people are willing to do to try and destroy America. It sucks. Let's take some comments here. Where'd that MB says, wow, this is crazy. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's happening right now. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen very, very, very shortly. Let me see. I have an idea of something I might do. Let me go to my quick break here, and I may have to. Here, let me just do this, and I'm going to check something out. I'm going to get back to you really quick here. All right, hold on.
There's somewhere to be every night of the week. Seems God ain't close as he used to be. And there's more tequila in this old town than pines in Tennessee. I ain't the man I thought I'd be. And these neon lights that keep me up got me thinking maybe mom and dad.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I don't know when President Trump is going to come on. I mean, if they met at 1 o'clock, it is now 3:15. Who knows what they'll do? So what I'm going to do is I've got a feed of the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit right now is having a conference about President Trump being able to use the National Guard. So I'm going to put that on, and then I'll be searching in the background if something comes on. This stuff with the Ninth Circuit may be pretty interesting. So you've got a 3-judge panel that are going to listen to Newsom's attorney, and one's going to listen to President Trump's attorney, and they're going to try and determine basically should President Trump be allowed to use the military because, you know, he is the commander-in-chief. So let's listen in for a little bit here.
A variant of this question to your friend when it's his turn. But do you read in the district court's order on this point a definitive statement of what it was that the secretary should have done to comply with this supposed requirement that obviously the district court found that sending it to the adjutant wasn't sufficient? But do you see, how does the United States interpret the order in terms of the specificity of this wasn't enough, how does the United States interpret the order of what would have been enough to comply with this?
I think it's unclear. It's unclear whether he meant that we should have copied Governor Newsom on the email, but he didn't say that. But he agreed with us that, and disagreed with California, that the statute does not contain an approval requirement or a consultation requirement. But at the end of the day, I think that's what the district court imposed by saying you can't issue it through the adjutant. You got to issue it through the Governor Newsom. In which case, what's the point, right? We're going to get to the same place because the governor has no discretion under the second prong of the element sentence of the statute. He shall issue the orders, right? So even if we sent that email to Governor Newsom, we'd get to the same place. He would be required to send that order to the adjutant, and we'd be in the exact same place today.
I understand the United States' argument. There was no technical violation here, but even if there were a technical violation, the remedy imposed by the district court was all out of proportion to the supposed wrong.
Exactly, right? So at the district court hearing, we even asked the district court, if you think there's a technical violation of the statute, give us a chance to cure, right? We'll send the right email, whatever you think we need to do, we can do that. The district court did not give us that opportunity. Instead, the court issued an extraordinary injunction that basically vacated the president's decision, orders him to reverse his order and surrender control over a portion of the armed forces back to the California governor. That is an extraordinary order and remedy, wholly out of proportion. And under the Winter case, really the equities here are totally imbalanced for all the reasons we've explained in our declarations, given the mob violence and the threats that if this order goes into effect, it will be putting lives at risk and federal property at risk as well.
So, counsel, you may not know the answer to this question, and it may not be in the record, but I'm asking about sort of current conditions. As the United States has pointed out, the proposed order that the state asked the district court to impose says in it that the order doesn't prohibit the force from providing indirect assistance to federal officials, protecting federal property, defending federal officials or employees from threatened physical harm, etc. Is right now, are the forces doing materially more than what was in that carve-out that the state had proposed?
Yes, Your Honor. And I think that's clear from both the Nell Declaration and the supplemental declaration from General Sherman that we submitted just with our reply brief. It explains not only are the guardsmen protecting the perimeter of the federal buildings, but also performing kind of an escort function when ICE agents go outside of the federal buildings. They are setting up a perimeter so those officers aren't assaulted by mobs when they're trying to enforce federal immigration laws. So even that proposed order would have been an extraordinary intrusion as well.
Or even if that proposed order had been entered, the United States would, as of now, be doing things that would have been barred by that order.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In your view, is there any issue under the Posse Comitatus Act before us in the current posture of this case?
No, Your Honor. The district court ruled for us on that issue at this stage. In the TRO opinion, I don't understand the state to resurrect that argument for purposes of the stay. I'm happy to address it, but I mean, the point that we made in district court was that there is no violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. The orders are very clear that the guardsmen and the Marines are engaged in a protective mission that falls within the president's inherent power. They're not engaged in direct law enforcement. And I think the declarations from Nell and the other general that we submitted made clear that the guardsmen and the Marines are carrying out those orders faithfully, consistent with statute.
But your view is that there's no need even for us to say that much because the issue just isn't here.
Yeah, that's correct.
Counsel, did you want to, and I know we've asked a lot of questions, did you want to briefly address, or however long you want to address, the 10th Amendment issue?
Your Honor, I don't think there's much to say because I think it's completely derivative of the statutory question. I think the district court ultimately recognized that at the end of that portion of his opinion. I think the state recognizes that as well. If the president acted consistent with the statute here, then he's acting consistent with the Constitution because the militia clauses authorize Congress to delegate to the president the authority to call up the guard. If he permissibly called up the guard, of course, there's no 10th Amendment problem here.
Yeah, I read the district court's order as I believe you do, where the district court explicitly recognized that if the district court had gotten it wrong on the president's authority to call up the guard, that the 10th Amendment calculus would be materially different and might well weigh in the president's favor.
I think that's right. I mean, there's no 10th Amendment issue here if the president is acting consistent with the statute. I'm happy to answer any further questions. If the court has no other questions, I'd like to talk about kind of the situation on the ground in Los Angeles today and walk the court through some of our declarations, unless the court has any other questions on those statutory issues.
I'm fine with your doing that, and I know Judge Miller and Judge Sung will ask questions if they feel it appropriate, but I'm fine with your turning to that.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to emphasize how crucial the Santa Cruz declarations are. The first one is at page 235 of the addendum. The second declaration is attached to our reply brief, and it explains the danger.
So just to give you guys a little look, as you can see, Brett Shoemate, who's in the box on the lower left, is the U.S. Department of Justice attorney who's arguing on behalf of the government, President Trump. The attorney on the right, who's just looks like a little head at this point, he's the attorney for California. The three people across the top are the panel of judges. So we've heard the guy in the middle talk, we've heard the guy with the glasses talk, we haven't heard the woman talk, but that's who these people are. Just wanted to give you a scorecard as to who everybody was.
Down and severely outnumbered. It also explains how federal officers had to hold the building by themselves because it took over an hour and a half for local authorities to provide support and assistance to the federal officers. Paragraphs 18 through 20 describe what happened Saturday, June 7th, the day the president issued the order. 7 hours of constant fighting nonstop between ICE agents and a violent crowd that disrupted an immigration enforcement operation planned for that day. One officer was trapped inside her vehicle. Another shattered his or her wrist because of concrete blocks that are being thrown, mortar-style fireworks. Paragraph 33 of that declaration, I think, is essential here. It concludes, quote, "I believe the safety of local federal facilities and the safety of those conducting immigration enforcement operations in this area of responsibility requires additional manpower and resources," end quote. That was a week ago. The supplemental declaration confirms the situation on the ground has not changed. There's still ongoing violence and an extraordinary need for the Guard in Los Angeles even today. Paragraph 4 explains that the federal building in Los Angeles, the one that had been breached the week before, has still been closed since June 9th. And again, concludes that the Guard is essential to protecting that property. Paragraph 6, I think, is also crucial. It explains that there are continuing violent protests at federal facilities throughout Los Angeles, including this past weekend. June 14th, there were 1,000 people assaulting law enforcement, a violent mob with rocks, bricks, fireworks, an extraordinary scene. And that declaration concludes in paragraphs 7 through 14 that the Guard is essential to continuing to safely enforce immigration laws and protecting federal buildings in Los Angeles. I just commend to the court, it is essential that this injunction be stayed, otherwise lives and property will be at risk. The court has no other questions.
All right, do you want to reserve the remainder of your time?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we'll now hear for the attorney for the governor and the state of California.
Good afternoon, Your Honors, and may it please the court, Samuel Harbert on behalf of the governor and state of California. Defendants' motion for a stay pending appeal should be denied. The framers of our Constitution gave Congress the authority to enact statutes governing when the president may call forth a state's National Guard into federal service. The only statute invoked here, 10 U.S.C. section 12406, requires that one of three factual predicates exist before that authority may be exercised, and requires that the federalization order be issued, quote, through the governor. But on June 7th, for the first time in our nation's history, defendants federalized thousands of members of the state National Guard in circumstances where none of those factual predicates exist, and they circumvented the governor, who did not receive the order, and who certainly did not issue it. For those reasons, the district court rightly held that the state is likely to prevail in showing that these actions exceeded the proper bounds of executive authority. In each of the equitable factors, counsels strongly against a stay pending appeal, which would allow defendants to prolong this unprecedented, unlawful executive action. To be sure, Los Angeles has seen certain episodes of unrest and even violence in recent days, including violence directed at state and local law enforcement officials. The state has strongly condemned these acts, and it has responded forcefully to them. And I would appreciate the opportunity at some point in my time this afternoon to respond to the suggestion from the other side that the state has been unwilling or unable to respond. A stay pending appeal would profoundly injure the state of California and our nation more generally. It would allow defendants to continue diverting thousands of guardsmen away from critical work at the state level, including wildfire prevention and drug interdiction. It would allow defendants to further escalate tensions and the risk of violence in the city of Los Angeles. And it would defy our constitutional traditions of preserving state sovereignty, of providing judicial review for the legality of executive action, of safeguarding our cherished rights to political protest, and of keeping the military.
Counsel, I want to start with one part of the district court's order. And as I read the district court's order on page 23 of the order, I believe it's denominated A283 in the record. I read the district court's order as saying that as long as the president can in some way or manner execute the laws of the United States, that subsection 3 of 12406 isn't met. That although there's no numbers in there, it suggests that if the president can 50% execute the laws, or 70% or 80%, or maybe even 15%, that this isn't met, and that what is required is that the president be wholly unable to execute the laws of the United States for him to be able to invoke the statute. So my first question is, am I reading the district court's order right? If I'm not, please tell me where I'm wrong. And if I am reading it right, does California agree with the district court's reading of the statute?
Your Honor, I'm not sure that the district court's analysis there needs to be read so expansively, and the state is certainly not asking the court to adopt that interpretation of prong 3. All we're asking the court to conclude, at least at this very early stage of the litigation, is at a bare minimum for prong 3 of the statute to exert any meaningful limit on executive authority in this area. It has to mean more than what defendants are suggesting. It has to at least mean that the president comes forward with some attempted justification, or at least an attempt to exhaust or at least contemplate more modest alternatives than immediately reaching for the most.
But going back to a case that the United States cites, Martin v. Mott, I mean, one of the things the court said in that case is we are all of opinion that the authority to decide whether the exigency has arisen belongs exclusively to the president, and that his decision is conclusive upon all other persons. And the court was including itself in the all other persons. Even if we were to agree with you that there is some limited role of judicial review, how can, with the facts here and the language in Martin v. Mott, how can that test be met here by the state to justify an injunction against the president's actions?
Your Honor, I'd like to respond to Martin and then also explain why the state believes the modern language of Section 12406 can't support the highly deferential, essentially unchecked view of authority under the third prong of the statute that the government is advancing here. So as to Martin, it was a very different case. It involved the determination of a foreign invasion. It's also decided many years ago, well before the emergence of modern political question doctrine, cases like Zivotofsky, which say that when a court is addressing a core legal issue like interpretation of a statute as here or the Constitution, that is a core exercise of judicial review. It's something that courts have a virtually unflagging obligation to do when they have jurisdiction. And I would add, as to Martin, Your Honor, the government has been making a very similar argument based on that case in the Alien Enemies Act context across the country. And as far as I'm aware, courts have uniformly rejected the government's very similar argument invoking Martin in that context, which involves the Alien Enemies Act, which implicates at least something closer to the types of foreign policy or national security considerations that have traditionally led courts not to deem cases justiciable.
So if we were to agree with you that there is some judicial review here, how much discretion, if any, does California believe the president's judgment that this is necessary for him to comply with the take care clause and to take care that the laws be faithfully executed? How much discretion does he have, in California's view, under this statute in deciding when to federalize?
Your Honor, two answers. So I do think, looking at the text of Section 12406, it's important to recognize that this statute illustrates Congress knows how to accord substantial discretion to the president when it wants to do so, because it does accord that type of discretion after a federalization decision has been properly made, consistent with the factual predicates in terms of the numbers of troops that the president deems appropriate to respond to the situation that justified federalization. You don't see that language in the factual predicates justifying the initial federalization decision. And it's an established feature of statutory interpretation that when Congress uses language in one part of a statute but omits it in another, courts presume that the omission is intentional. Now,
does that mean we were? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
If we were writing on a blank slate, I would tend to agree with you. But the problem that I see for you is that Mott seemed to be dealing with very similar phrasing about whenever there is an invasion, then the president has discretion. And it seemingly rejected the exact argument that you're making, and seemed to broadly hold that even with that turn of phrase and that structure of the sentence, Congress was essentially giving the president the authority, the exclusive authority to determine whether the exigency existed. So how do you deal with that?
Your Honor, two very important distinctions with Mott. The first is one I mentioned a moment ago, which is the determination about a foreign invasion implicates sensitive foreign policy.
Right, I understand the factual difference, but what I'm asking for you to address is the textual similarity.
The textual similarity, as we understand Martin, the approach that the court took there was not based on the particular language in the statute. It was based on the sensitive considerations involving foreign policy. And it was a very different context because there you had a plaintiff who was a member of the state militia, a low-ranking member of the military, objecting to a command coming from on high. And courts throughout our history have been reluctant to directly intervene in the chain of command in that manner. But in terms of, Judge Bennett, to get back to the second aspect of your question about whether we see room for any deference or discretion to the president here, we don't have a problem with according the president some level of appropriate deference based upon his experience implementing federal law. The problem as we see it is that there's really nothing to defer to here because the president has not even attempted. Defendants have made no attempt whatsoever to provide argument or evidence that they even contemplated more modest measures to the extreme response of calling in the National Guard and militarizing the situation.
Can I ask you to go back to, I guess the first part of this answer where you were responding to Judge Sung and distinguishing Mott on the ground that it involves, a foreign invasion and a militiaman rather than somebody else challenging it. And, I agree those are both factual differences. But how do you deal with, Luther against Borden, not very long after Mott, seems to have read the opinion in a way that didn't attach significance to either of those distinctions. I mean, that Luther was not a foreign case, was not about somebody in the chain of command, and the court read it for this fairly broad preclusion of review of the president's decisions about when to call forth the militia. So what do we do with that?
Your Honor, I think that the court sitting today in 2025 should be quite cautious about relying on older authorities in this area, given the shifts over the years in the political question doctrine, justiciability doctrines, but also given the historical development of the strong norm in this country against military involvement in civilian affairs. So cases that predated the Posse Comitatus Act, for example, I think need to be looked at least with some caution before they're too readily or quickly applied to the circumstances of the sort we have here.
But those are maybe good arguments for the Supreme Court to reconsider those cases, but they've told us repeatedly that when there is a case that is directly applicable to an issue, even if we think it's been undercut by later developments and other areas of law or other statutes, as you mentioned, or other Supreme Court cases, we're supposed to follow the applicable case and leave it to them to overrule it. So I guess my question is, what can we as a Court of Appeals do with that argument?
Your Honor, I think for one thing, you can look to the other lower court cases around the country that have distinguished Martin in recent weeks and months in the Alien Enemies Act context as persuasive authority. I mean, I also think you can recognize that those older cases you're mentioning did not consider statutory language identical to the third prong of the statute here, or the government's extraordinary argument, which I think really does reduce down to the position that the president can federalize National Guard forces as soon as he makes a judgment that civilian federal law enforcement officials cannot do the job as they've been doing it in ideal circumstances or face any obstacles. Or to put it another way, as we understand the government's position on the third prong, they essentially have a binary view of the world, where there's world A, where federal officials like ICE agents are enforcing the law as they prefer, and then world B, they encounter any obstacle, and then the president can immediately reach for the most extreme possible measure on the table, which is federalizing National Guard troops. As we see it, there are gradations in between those two worlds, and at a minimum, prong 3 requires the president to make a showing that he's at least contemplated alternative, more modest measures before calling in the National Guard.
So counsel, even if I were to agree with you that the position advanced by the government that there's no review were wrong, where in the jurisprudence of the Take Care Clause or the language of this statute is the president, with significant deference at least, required to have judicial review of whether he considered lesser measures? Where does that spring from, even if we were to agree with you that we have some ability to review the president's actions?
Your Honor, as we see it, it comes from the plain text of the third prong of Section 12406, which of course is one of the laws that the president has a duty to take care is faithfully executed. And it says unable, not just unable in general, but unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. And I point the court to opposing counsel's definition of regular forces offered before the district court. This is from the district court transcript, which I believe is available on the court's electronic docket.
We have it.
It's that regular forces, quote, means everything other than the state National Guard. It could be local police, it could be federal marshals, it could be the Marines. Now, our position, which I think is really quite modest, is that given the enormous resources and personnel available to the federal government encompassed within that definition of regular forces, there at least needs to be some consideration of whether there are more modest measures than calling for the National Guard before taking that brave and extraordinary step. And in terms of highlighting why that step is so extraordinary, why it's been so rare in our history, I'd point the court to the amicus brief filed by high-ranking former military leaders, including former secretaries of the Navy and the Army, former four-star generals and admirals, who have explained the grave threat to the country's democratic traditions of licensing the government to adopt the expansive, near limitless reading of Section 12406 that it's articulated in this case. As that brief explains, this poses a risk, makes it all too easy for a president to call forth the National Guard to serve a domestic political policy agenda in a way that threatens to impugn, call into question the historic neutrality, impartiality, integrity of the military in the eyes of the public.
Counsel, that brief seemed to offer a lot of reasons why the president's decision was should have been counseled against, and that they wouldn't have agreed with it, and that it's bad for policy, let's say. But I think it stopped short of saying the president couldn't do that, couldn't make that decision. Is there something in that brief that you think was saying the president was not actually able to make this decision?
Yes, Your Honor, in the sense that it highlights the grave consequences of an overly expansive interpretation of Section 12406, and that should inform the way that the court reads the statute. But that's not the only significant consequence the court should bear in mind. It should also consider the profound effect on our federal structure of government and the balance of power between states and the federal government. Our framers made the decision, it's reflected in the text of Article 1's militia clauses, to generally leave to state governments control over the militia, today the National Guard. What we see is that decision, the wisdom of that decision has endured over the years. And one of the most concrete ways to see that in this case is to look at the declarations filed in district court, which detail the critical functions performed by the California National Guard at the state level. That's central to our claim of irreparable harm in this case of leaving the stay in effect. It's also central to the federalism concerns that we've raised that should animate the court's approach to construing Section 12406. I'd also, Your Honor, to the extent it's relevant to the court's determination of the third prong of Section 12406, I'd like to push back quite forcefully on opposing counsel's suggestion that state and local leaders, including law enforcement agents, are unwilling or unable to address the situation on the ground in Los Angeles. I think the factual record shows otherwise, including the Santa Cruz declaration that opposing counsel relied heavily on. We would encourage the court to rely on that declaration because I think it really highlights all of the efforts that state and local law enforcement have been making in recent days to respond to the situation. That includes making arrests. I think that the current number is around 1,000 arrests. There are thousands of state and local law enforcement officers that have been deployed. Local leaders have imposed a curfew in the affected areas between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. There are other steps that have been taken as well, including using authority under state law to order unlawful assemblies and disperse crowds as necessary. State and local law enforcement officials are well trained in crowd control and management of civil unrest.
And counsel, I'm sure that all of your clients subscribe to what you put at page 1 of your opposition to the stay request. To be clear, the civil unrest in Los Angeles is a serious matter. Violence against government officers and property is unacceptable.
Absolutely, Your Honor. And the state and local leaders have roundly and repeatedly condemned this violence, which includes episodes, unrest not just directed against federal officials, but against state and local law enforcement officials as well. So it is a profound concern to the leaders of the state, but the state is dealing with it. Local law enforcement agencies are doing their job of dealing with it. And to get back to a suggestion that Judge Miller made to opposing counsel, which I agree with, that in terms of evaluating kind of the baseline when considering an invocation of prong 3 of the statute, it's worth stepping back and remembering that we're talking about federal law enforcement agencies that regularly encounter dangerous conditions in the field when doing their work. And so the question is the delta so significant? Are we in a world that's so different from normal conditions as to justify an extreme measure like militarizing the situation and bringing in the National Guard? We don't think that the federal government has even made the first step at seriously attempting to satisfy that standard. If I could, Your Honors, I'd like to turn to the through the governor requirements that the district court also applied. We acknowledge that there's some ambiguity in the meaning of this requirement, but we don't think it can credibly mean what the federal government suggests, because what that suggests is that while the Congress in 1908 added this language, it can be satisfied according to defendants by not involving the governor in any way, shape, or form. And then at the end of the process, when the decision is made, when the final document is issued, to just slap a label saying through the governor at the top of the document.
What is
No, go ahead, Judge Miller.
What is your understanding of how it's supposed to work? So if the president, I guess, or the Secretary of Defense, writes up the order, sends it to the governor. If the governor then, looks at it, says, this is interesting, sticks it in his drawer, and goes out to lunch, what happens then?
Your Honor, I want to highlight just how far we are away from that situation.
I understand, and I'm
There's
not
no attempt to comply with it.
Your Honor, just hypothetically.
Our position is that the best understanding in light of our general expectation in our system that when Congress seeks to involve government officials, it seeks to promote rather than undermining federalism and state sovereignty. So we think the best reading would be that the governor's consent is required, but we don't think the court needs to go nearly that far to agree with us that there was a violation here, because at a minimum, we think that issuance through the governor requires notifying the governor of the federalization decision and asking him to issue it, which would give the governor a chance to at least consult on the scope of the president.
So where does the statute say that issuing it through the governor requires either the governor's consent or requires consultation with the governor? Where in the text do you take that from?
Your Honor, we take it from the plain meaning of through the governor. So that's the first step. What does it mean to be issued through the governor? For the governor to issue it, we think at a minimum that means that the governor needs to be informed of it and given the chance to issue it. And here's why we think that the statute should be read to include at least a consultation opportunity, because the defendant's contrary view would pose very serious constitutional questions. So under their view, they can just do the whole process without consulting the governor at all and then slap his name at the top of the document at the end of the process. That risks blurring the lines of political accountability in much the same way as the commandeering laws that were struck down by the Supreme Court in cases like Prince and like Murphy. It essentially forces the governor to share in the political responsibility for.
So if we were to disagree with your reading and looked at this as a ministerial task that's in the statute, would there still have been more that the United States would have been required to do other than sending this to the adjutant, who is the governor's subordinate and issues all orders in the name of the governor? Would there have had to have been something directly to the governor's email or mailed? I'm not trying to be facetious here, but if we disagree with you about consultation and consent, was there anything more that needed to be done here as a technical matter, in your view?
In our view, yes, Your Honor, to issue it through the governor, it needs to at least go to the governor. But if I could, I would like to take one more pass at persuading you that the federal government's interpretation just can't be right. As I understand it, they do present it as a purely ministerial requirement, essentially a routing requirement to ensure that there's not command confusion in the event that the State Guard is transferred to federal authority. The reason we don't think that can be right is there are other federal statutes, most notably the Insurrection Act, which similarly allow the transfer of the National Guard to federal authority and pose the very same types of chain of command confusion that defendants have highlighted here. Those statutes do not include the same through the governor language. So Congress must have had something else in mind when it deliberately chose to add this language to the statute in 1908.
And I just add, it's a very roundabout way. Of imposing a consultation requirement. It seems like, on your reading, they should have said, orders for these purposes shall be issued after consultation with the governor or something like that. This is a very indirect way of accomplishing that purpose, if that was the purpose, isn't it?
Not so sure it's indirect, Your Honor. I think when Congress imposed an issuance through the governor requirement, they were contemplating good faith on both sides and that there would be some level of coordination involved. And just one more point on this as evidence that our reading of the statute is correct. I'd actually point you to the president's memorandum on June 7th itself, which directed Secretary Hegseth to, quote, coordinate with the governors of the states. That suggests that even the president saw this statute as imposing some type of consultation or coordination requirement. Of course, Secretary Hegseth did not do so.
And what about, Judge Bennett alluded to this provision of state law a moment ago, but just as a general matter, under principles of agency law, if you have to notify someone or get someone's consent or do something through someone, that means, someone or that person's agent. And here, I guess the Military and Veterans Code, Section 163 of state law says that the Adjutant General can issue orders in the name of the governor. So it would seem like the state has made the Adjutant General effectively the substitute for the governor in this context. So why wasn't it enough that they sent it to that officer?
Your Honor, that's not our understanding of that provision of state law. As we understand it, the Adjutant General still has an obligation to communicate and coordinate with and take orders from the state's chief executive and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces under the California Constitution with respect to the National Guard. It's just after those decisions are made, the Adjutant General has authority to issue orders in the name of the governor. So we don't read it in the expansive way that our opponents do.
All of his duties under Section 163 are as prescribed by the governor, and he shall issue all orders in the name of the governor. And this is a statute that's been around for a while, yeah?
It has, Your Honor, and as I mentioned, we don't read it as the federal government does. I'd also point out, just because that state law may give the Adjutant General certain authorities, that doesn't mean that the president has certain authority to issue orders through the name of the governor under federal law. And we know from the plain text of Section 12406 that Congress knew how to allow orders to be issued through a commanding officer, because that is the process prescribed with respect to the National Guard of the District of Columbia.
But that prescription is federal law.
It is, Your Honor.
The D.C. prescription. I take the reason they mentioned that there is because that is a matter of federal law over which the Congress has control.
My point is simply that the text illustrates that Congress knew how to allow an order to be issued through a commanding officer instead of a chief executive, and it didn't do that with respect to the governors of the 50 sovereign states.
Counsel, I want to go back to the what you're arguing in terms of the conditions necessary for the president to exercise its calling forth power as delegated by the statute. I hear you arguing that the exigency required under subsection 3, essentially the inability to execute the laws with the regular forces, wasn't met. I don't hear you arguing that the president cannot rely on that subsection based on anything it said in the executive order or that it wasn't properly invoked or relied on. I hear you arguing that we can and should consider the evidence put forth before the district court, not that we would be limited to what's in the executive order. So are you conceding those points?
If I understand the question, I certainly acknowledge that, yes, the district court should have been looking at the evidence put forward by the federal government to try to satisfy the factual predicates required under Section 12406. And as the district court rightly concluded, the federal government had failed to provide argument or evidence that would even really make a serious attempt at satisfying that predicate, because it didn't even suggest that it contemplated more modest measures than calling in the National Guard.
I'll try to clarify my question. You are not arguing that we would be limited only to what was stated in the executive order to determine whether the factual basis is there. Is that correct?
I see. That's correct.
And you're not arguing that the executive order failed to rely on subsection 3 or invoke subsection 3. Is that correct?
That's not an argument that we've made, at least at this preliminary stage of the litigation. That's right. Although I do think it's notable that the federal government has principally relied in its papers and in the executive order on prong 2, which I do think suggests that they understood they didn't make a serious effort to show evidence or argument as to prong 3.
Okay.
Your Honors, with permission of the court, I know that I've gone past my time. I would like to very briefly address irreparable harm.
That's fine, counsel. Please do so.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would ask the court to reject the government's motion for a stay pending appeal, because every day that the stay remains in effect, it causes these two principal forms of irreparable harm that I'd like to highlight. One is the concrete harm to important state functions that are not happening because of the diversion of now fully 1/3 of California's National Guard troops that are available to the president's unlawful mission on the streets of Los Angeles. That's causing harm in terms of not having troops on the ground ready to respond to emergencies, especially wildfires, which is especially problematic as we enter the peak of wildfire season, which experts believe will.
Well, something must be getting ready to happen, because C-SPAN just cut in the middle of that. Let me just check and see if they had a problem. Maybe they got tired of hearing that crap as well. I don't know. Hold on. Let me see if they did cut it. If they cut that probably means that President Trump is getting ready to come out. So let me look here. I'm looking to see if that was an error by them, or did they end it? Yeah, they cut it. They cut the whole feed. So let me look around and see if President Trump is indeed getting ready to come out. I know SV's looking. I'm looking. We're trying to see if I can find a feed. Monica Page did post this a little while ago. Monica Page posted that there has been a readout. That the meeting has ended and the readout is what she was waiting for. But have not seen anything from President Trump here. Let me just show you what Monica posted. I kind of put it up there while you guys were looking. This was Monica's post at about 11 minutes ago. Her post was, President Trump's Situation Room meeting has ended, awaiting the readout. Excuse me. So, no readout yet. Basically listening to that hearing, it sounded boring as crap. Sounded like the attorney was getting his butt kicked, but you never know how a judge is going to move forward. All right, so I can't find that he's talking at all. There's been no signal, nothing released in terms of him going to speaking, which means as soon as I turn off, then probably he'll come out. That's how it normally works. Let me just check Caroline Levitt, see if she has anything. I find it odd that they just cut the feed on that hearing very quickly. Let me see. I can't see that. Hold on. Caroline Levitt, she's got nothing posted either. So I don't know. I guess what I'll do is I'll end now. I was hoping that while that hearing was going on, we'd see if something was going to happen, but I don't see anything happening right now. So, hold on. Let me just figure this. 1 second. Let me just check one other thing. Well, you guys, I have one last video I could play that you guys can take a listen to. This is Anna Paulina Luna talking to Glenn Beck. So let's take a listen.
Do you think it's a red line to send over a bomber with, one bomb? Does that drag us into war, or is that just helping?
I would say as of right now, we need to not speculate, but continue to back the White House position, because I think that if I were to speculate on where the red line is, I don't think that it helps. And I do think that our allies and adversaries are looking to see what members of Congress are doing. And so I'm going to back the White House's position currently, which is defending our service members and not intervening at the moment.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. That is exactly what I just said on the air. Just about
really?
3 minutes ago. Yeah, I said, the world is watching. You don't think the mullahs over there are watching everything that's said on X? I said, we didn't used to have these conversations where it was global. We're now in a global atmosphere, and they're watching all of us, and we can't eat ourselves up, or they'll, if he's telling the truth, I think a good negotiator never bluffs. So, he has to back it up. 60 days, you don't want to see what happens on day 61. Well, he wasn't bluffing. And if they think that we are eating ourselves alive, they're more likely to go, no, you know what? Go ahead. It's a really bad thing.
What I will say is it's definitely a litmus test for our country right now. You're seeing a lot of people, again, jumping to conclusions. And what I will tell you is that there's only a very select few that fully understand what's happening in the Situation Room. That's the president, his team, and a select other few. But what I will tell you is don't read in, don't over-speculate, and also, don't jump to conclusions. Just, again, in the last 48 hours, I went online, I put out a statement because I saw so much disinformation circulating. And, this comes amidst something that was announced today by Kash Patel, that the CCP has engaged in basically election engineering. You just saw that in the 2020 election cycle. They just got busted. This also comes on the tail end of these riots that are absolutely being funded by the CCP. Neville Singham getting lots of money from them. And then it doesn't just, stop there. We just saw that there was an agro-terrorist attack from China. So what I would say is that, I'm partially inclined to think that some of these bot accounts that are attacking the president, our foreign policy positions right now, are coming from China amidst everything else that we're seeing. This is, 3 times now that we're seeing that they've done things. And so we have to stick together. It's not, Democrat versus Republican right now. It's America and fighting for Western civilization. And so we need to make sure that we are very responsible about our commentary right now.
I completely agree. We got to be responsible and not just put stuff out there for clicks, likes, and views. SV just sent me a video. The problem with the video that SV just sent me, which obviously I can't show anyway, but the video that he sent me was supposedly a video regarding the bunker buster. Now, there is a video on here that does show some bunker busting type video. It's not the bunker buster. It's not the one that goes way down. Israel couldn't do that. Only the United States. So as you guys are watching today, you're looking around and you see talk about bunker busters, there's only one country that can drop that bomb. And that's us. And that's what everybody is waiting to see. Supposedly there's an underground nuclear facility that's about 150 feet below the surface. And we are the only ones who have the capacity to drop this type of bomb onto any place, whether it be Iran or anywhere else. So that's what I think a lot of people are waiting to see. They're waiting to see, does the B-2 stealth bomber get used, get sent over to Iran, drop it, and come right back. Notice what Glenn Beck was saying, and it's a very good question. And it's something at this point, even the people who are like, oh, I don't want to support Trump anymore if he gets involved. What about a very limited strike? What if the B-2 stealth bomber comes in, drops the bunker buster, that Moab, and takes off? That's it. What would happen? How would you think if that was the entirety of the involvement? Would that change things? Possibly. People would think differently. But I mean, there's so many people talking so much crap out there. We're just going to have to see. He's not talking as of yet. I'm refreshing. I still don't see anything. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look and see if there are any, what's this say? Alex Jones just posted, Trump has been given intel that leads him to believe Iran already has a nuclear weapon. What? This is crazy. Wait. I'm going to have to look this up. Nick Sorter says that he got information. Where is this? How old is this? Okay, so 19 minutes ago, Nick Sorter said, just in, President Trump's meeting in the Situation Room with the NSC has just ended after well over an hour. It's possible we may hear directly from Trump shortly per multiple reports. That's shortly. We'll say this. He says probably not much to say at this point. If the Iranians didn't come rushing to the table, what's going to happen is going to happen. Yep. So I'm going to go eat some dinner and get ready for the evening show, but we'll probably find out by the time I come back what exactly is going to, or what has transpired. All right. I'm sure there'll be more than just one bunker buster that's going to be dropped. Yeah, it might be more than one, but in any event, it's still us that has that capacity. All right, so I'm gonna read super chats, get out of here, come back at 7:30, and probably compile a whole bunch of stuff. Then I get to talk about what I was going to talk about today in the beginning about what's happening with the election stuff. Just to let you guys know, I let the poll run all show long. 5,700 plus votes. The question was, will you continue to support Trump if he strikes Iran? 94% of you said, of course, yes. All right, that's it. 94% of you said you will continue to support President Trump, which I don't think there's any other option. I mean, when you think about it, realistically, the people are like, oh, he's going to lose all support. For who? What exactly are people going to do? I'm done with Trump. I'm going to go like follow AOC or something. No, it ain't happening. So I think it's all a psyop. I think it's completely a psyop in terms of people saying stuff like that. No. I don't see anybody going anywhere at all in terms of leaving their support for Trump. And if they do, they're all talking crap. And I'm not pointing at anybody, so don't get mad at me and say, oh, Barry said no. I'm just saying, what's your alternative? If you don't support Trump anymore, you're supporting the other guys. Well, I'm not going to vote for a Democrat, but you're still supporting the other guys. We can't have support waiver. That's not how this works. We voted for the man. Doesn't mean he's always right, but I don't know. There's something about standing behind your principle. Your principle is this is the guy you voted for. You don't get to change just because you don't like what's happening anymore, do you? I don't think so. Hold on. I'm trying to get this window correct so I can read super chats before I sign off. Okay, here we go. And it looks like I have it formatted correctly. What a day. Then we got something at night today. All right, so Todd Doyle, TR3B might be real and end in Iran skies. Just another knucklehead. Tip jar colonizer guy makes me laugh. Tilly, I will always cherish and love the man. God bless with our beloved President Trump. Hulkazilla Gaming, thank you. Here's the name. Demon of Cybertron, people that call it colonizing are broke hippies. I agree. Tom Novo, God bless our president. Suzanne Book, Thank you. Tilly again. I used to watch several people on YouTube until I realized they were vomiting at the mouth. Now I only watch you and Veteran Biker. Thank you. And Ben is very good. Tilly again. BB, watched the movie Soraya, Iran was Monarchy Oil UK. Okay, I'll have to look that up. Mr. Mike, I continuously back Trump no matter what. What's the alternative? Socialism? Communism? Exactly. Exactly. Where are we here? Tar Heel Patriot. With the return of the Crown Prince, I can see Iran signing on to the Abraham Accords within a year's time. That would be awesome. Wallace Hagel, please interview Holcomb Energy Systems. 0 Point Energy is here. This changes everything. All right. Hopefully Ashley got that. Barry, it's not 40 virgins, it's 72 vegans. Judy Brash, God bless you and your family. God bless you and the USA as well. Jax, Iran has been told since the 90s that they cannot have a nuke. Stubborn or stupid, they've had time to understand the situation. More than enough time. Joanne Parker, Barry, ask yourself, what would have happened if Kamala and Tampon Tim had gotten into office? I can't even imagine. Gen V, yes, it was Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi in exile. Bring back the Crown Prince and make Persia great again. Wow. George Rivera, what I really like about you, Barry, is your timely coverage and brilliant commentary. I don't need to go anywhere else for news. By the way, Kimchi One works great. Yes, it does. B. Mark, thank you very much. Unconditional means we do not give Iran billions of dollars just like stupid Obama did. God knows, thank God, what Kamala is not the president. I agree. Fazul guaranteed our home security on high alert. Yo, bet you. Because then the second part we have to worry about is whatever sleeper cells may be here. Gen V, and yes, I support Trump working with Crown Prince Reza, son of late Shah. Oh, that's who he is. Okay, now you're talking. He's the son of the Shah of Iran. Gotcha. I didn't know that. You guys don't know who the Shah of Iran is. If you're too young, you might want to go look it up. Marge De Benedetto, big thank you. Solrak, you should show some of the bomb video on Rebel. Tonight we shall do that. William Santos, Barry, your show is #1 in my opinion. Thank you for sharing the information. Thank you very much. And this one's too far down. Okay. With case of Kash Patel, the Dems are a death party already. Yeah, I'm going to go over that tonight. Sorry didn't get a chance to go to it. Hopefully we get everything tonight because it's crazy stuff going on. All right, so I'll see you guys at 7:30. Hopefully President Trump has talked by then. If he does, I'll get the recording. If not, maybe we'll see him live and do a national address. And he'll start with my fellow Americans. All right, see you guys at 7:30 tonight.